Subscribe today, Tommy, if you love movies.
Hey, look at boobies. I like movies. Hey, Cinema Gulp, where are ya? Help!
Hey, take it easy.
But I lost Cinema Gulp.
Stay calm. Just go to YouTube to subscribe and hit the bell for all the latest videos.
Hey, we're Cinema Gulp and we drink your cinema.
Thanks, Joe. Now I can subscribe.
And subscribing is half the battle.
You know what? You don't have an answer for that, do you? F you, man. I'm sorry.
I like beer. It makes me a jolly good fellow.
Hey, I remember when.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I like to know.
are you ready for start time?
Is this thing up?
Welcome to Cinema Gulp's Hump Day Happy Hour. Triple H, if you consider Hump Day one word, which we do. Today is a little different. Ben is on assignment doing something awesome that is both fun and profitable. I am pleased enough to be joining a Cinema Gulp OG daddy. John is here. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy to be with you today.
I greatly appreciate you being here and putting together today's topic. I actually had to copy and print it, so I have all of my notes.
Excellent.
And but usually it's like, so what do you want to talk about? And then we shuck and jive through the show. But this I've printed Word, so I feel very, very confident. And what is the topic that we are discussing today? But the most profitable of modern movie trends, the cinematic universe. We want to get into this past weekend's box office, a couple of news items, and I am also super excited, John. You've got some physical media representations.
Yes. And we hope maybe we'll be joined later by Joanne. We'll have to see.
Yes.
She's working at the moment. Was there any possibility of like Kat joining or anything like that, or no?
I hadn't heard anything about Kat, no, and in the description it just highlighted you, me, and Joe.
Got it.
So that is probably where we're looking.
Well, I know
where do you
you're
want to
saying
start?
cinematic universes are one of the most profitable things that Hollywood has going for itself right now. And much like the last show that I brought a topic to and was involved with, the PG-13, I feel like it's similar where Hollywood has lommed onto PG-13 as this profitable thing, but it's also helped ruin some of the quality or some of what we expect from Hollywood. And I think this whole drive to make everything a cinematic universe is doing the same thing. It's clearly profitable, but it is ruining Hollywood to some degree. But we'll get into that when we actually officially jump off on that topic.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to welcome everyone who is here. If in fact you are here, taking a look at the chat to say hello to Paul in Long Beach. And I will forward this to us. We will be playing the part of Ben. But Ben, you must absolutely include the Universal monster movies that bled into Abbott and Costello. And we can't forget that Kevin Smith had his universe way before Marvel. Yeah, that's going to be my highlight.
It's true. Yes, I
good.
actually have questions about that one that I was hoping you and Ben would chime in because I know you guys love that universe a lot. So.
Oh, the ISK universe? I consider
Yes.
myself well-versed in the ISK universe.
Perfect.
Looks good. Hello, looks good. Says, does the Mummy 99 and Van Helsing count? I doubt it. Just checking. That was, I don't know if the Mummy 99 was, but wasn't like Dracula Unleashed supposed to be part of that
Dracula
universe?
Untold. Yeah, that was the Dark Universe, attempts to launch the Dark Universe. I don't think they actually had connected within the Mummy movies and Van Helsing, actually connected those two films. I think if Van Helsing was a success, they probably would have started to find ways to connect them in the next installment or whatever. Because it was the same director who did The Mummy, who did Van Helsing. It was that Stephen Sommers, I think is his name.
Oh, right, yes.
So,
but yeah. And then Infinity, the timey-wimey-limey, who I think just has a preview of his time travel tome, which is either available or I think it's coming out. let us know in the chat. But Finity says, so the Star Trek cinematic universe, the Kelvin timeline means that Pinekirk isn't Shatner Kirk, but Nimoy Spock is Quinto Spock. We'll unpack the tangled web of those cinematic universe. It's strange. Anyway, we'll get into it when we get into it. It's kind of it's in that on that cusp of like, is James Bond the cinematic universe or just
that's why some of these fall under the maybe a cinematic universe, and others are like, no, it's confirmed. The filmmakers have confirmed it.
Right, and there are some that have just obvious clues. And Bump Master One, hello, Bump Master One, hello to you, John.
Hello, Bump Master One.
And Lemon. Hey, Lemon. Good to see you. All right. So let's, this will be quick, just in terms of what's been going on. Not much happening at the box office from last weekend. Number one with $51.3 million, according to Box Office Mojo, is Moana 2. Wicked dropped to, did you see the Moana, that there Moana, John?
I have not seen. I've seen Moana. I really like the first movie a lot, and my son has been enjoying the original on TV, and so was very excited to get a chance to go see the new one. We saw it over the Thanksgiving holiday up in Tahoe, so it was a great time. It was actually on Thanksgiving night. It was a great time with the family. The movie I knew going in was converted from what they had planned to make into a television show into a movie, and you could feel that while watching it. It just didn't feel as cinematic as it should have. The music wasn't quite what it should be from the original. It was clearly a step down, and while watching it, I was trying to just enjoy it because it was a fun family time, but my critic hat is always on to some degree, and was sitting there just like, this is not very good. I don't even know if I'd want to sit through it a second time. It's not terrible, but it just, maybe I had too high expectations, but I also knew that they had kind of fucked it over. I think it's making so much money, they're going to probably make a part 3 that will make sure that it's made as a film and not as a TV show first, and maybe that'll course correct it a little bit from what my issues were with it.
Well, hopefully. I heard it was a beautiful movie, but a lot of it is like, why are any of these people here? Is what I heard about it.
It's the same story as the first one. So you get
okay.
I mean, get that in a lot of sequels, but it didn't do it any favors of telling a new story at all. Just retreading.
And
Wicked, which you said came in second.
Yes.
I have not seen that. I heard some of the music playing while shopping in Target, and I'm like, nope, I am not going to like this. This is not for me.
Right. Which isn't necessarily a bad. Like, I don't mind when something. No, I like that is I've heard people online say that the argument that this is not for me is sort of gatekeeping, or it's not necessarily a valid takeaway, but I don't. Sometimes things aren't made for me. I don't necessarily have to have everything catered to my whims. I'm glad that the audience for Wicked got their movie, but it doesn't mean I have to jump to it and be like, oh, I'm a Wicked fan now. So if I come across it,
I would probably watch it at some point, especially with it having, it's a 2-parter, so it's going to be a big event again next year and whatnot. I will probably catch it on streaming when it's made available for free to me, and have the ability to fast forward if I'm just hating the music or something.
Yeah, like if the second one comes out and there's some sort of double bill happening, or if I'm with my nieces, maybe, but I have no huge interest in it. And then Gladiator 2 is in third with 12.6 million. That's another movie that it's like, why? What are we doing? And horrible tales coming from the cinematographer, where there was care that was lacking on the second one, because the specificities of lighting were sort of thrown out the window, because Ridley Scott was just sort of tearing ass through the whole thing with 12 cameras, and the cinematographer felt that it was a disservice to be able to properly light the sets, a lot of CGI. But again, I wasn't really huge on the first one, so Gladiator 2 is not really on my radar. But Kat from Phantasmagorium, also friend of the channel on Cinema Gulp, she's been here. She found it entertaining enough. Like, I think she gave it a 4 out of 5. But she was a bigger fan of the first one.
Yeah, I'm kind of with her. Big fan of the first one. It's best picture for that particular year on my list. And Ridley Scott's in kind of my top 7 or so filmmakers, maybe even my top 5 if I really whittle it down and figure it out. The problem is the last 15 years or so that he's had more stinkers than true classics, and so he's probably slipping on my list a bit because he puts out too many House of Gucci's. What when you say he was rushing through this Gladiator 2, which he's been planning for 24 years to some degree, what was the one he just made last year with Joaquin? That was I'm blanking on the damn person's name.
Napoleon.
Yeah. It's like he's really made a lot of movies. Ridley has made a lot of movies in just the last 8 or 9 years, and I guess that shows that he kind of has a movie every 2 years or so, and that's forcing him to rush through ones that he should spend time on, like a sequel to one of his best movies.
Yeah,
and it shows. I agree with what you were saying about like the cinematography. Almost every aspect of the movie does not quite live up to what the original brought, whether it's the cinematography, the acting, the story, his direction alone. All of that is just a little bit subpar for what I would want. But it's entertaining. It's a kind of a leave your. It's stupid that because Gladiator is not a leave your brain at the door kind of film, but the second one kind of is. Like if you can leave your brain at the door, you can have a good time with it.
And it seems to be, as you mentioned, like a passion project. He's been wanting to make it for 24 years, but there's always, when you hear people talking about making a sequel, and maybe a pale comparison, but like when they were making Clerks 2, and the guy who plays Randall was like, "Are we really gonna, we caught lightning in a bottle. Do you want to try and tarnish that? Or are we going to be able to live up to the original?" And that, I feel like with Gladiator, I like Gladiator. It's not one of my favorites, but it's when they said Gladiator 2, I was like, I don't know if it's going to be able to help the classic.
I would rather have seen the original idea. Do you know what the original concept for Gladiator 2 was?
Wasn't that when he's in the Maximus is in the afterlife, and then he gets cast out of wherever the afterlife is?
Yeah, some situation where he's forced to fight wars throughout time.
Right.
And I think have to kill his own son at some point or something, or maybe he had to kill Jesus. I forget. There was something very controversial about who he sent back to kill. And then there was a segment of the film. It wasn't the whole movie, but there was a segment of the film where he was going to fight wars through different time periods.
Yeah, it was
sounds like a total mindfuck, but who knows? Could have been great. Like instead of just making the same movie again, which is what they did.
Yeah, but with Denzel.
Yeah, Denzel's good. He's
I'm not knocking Denzel. I'm just that would be the selling point for me. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll check it out because Denzel's in there.
Well, you might enjoy it then because he really is kind of the best part of the movie.
Oh. I'm sure it will enter into the collection just so I can have the part 2 sitting beside part 1.
Yeah.
And then in number 4, I have no idea what Pushpa the Rule Part 2 is.
Indian film, but I'm not sure much about it.
Well, good for Bollywood, I suppose. And then rounding out the top 5 is the Santa Claus action movie, The Rock Red One.
Waiting for it to be on streaming, and then I'll check it out.
It's supposed to be coming soon, isn't it?
That's the question. Are they going to release it before Christmas so people can watch it at home, which I would probably do during the Christmas week if it was available? Or are they holding out hope that it's going to keep making money at the box office, which is not making a ton of? And I think they're trying to see if they can squeeze out $100 million on it just to call it, oh, it's a success. When it's not. Based on the cost of it, is not a success at that price point.
But at least they sort of garnered it back because I don't think anybody was going to be subscribing to Disney Plus to see Red One.
Well, I think we can transition from talking about Red One and its box office to one of your top news stories, because I think somebody named Chris Evans is looking for a better paycheck than what he's getting out of Red. Well, Red One, he probably got paid a good paycheck, but he's not helping sell the tickets all that well. So what's he doing to earn this next paycheck?
Well, it has been announced that Chris Evans will be returning playing Steve Rogers, Captain America, in Avengers Doomsday. which
have they labeled it officially as him playing Steve Rogers in Captain America, or have they just said that Chris Evans, the actor, will be in Doomsday?
That's interesting. I think the commentary that I've seen surrounding this casting is people complaining about it tarnishing Steve Rogers' legacy at the end, and how it was such just a beautiful, perfect ending for him to be dancing with Peggy. And so from what I'm hearing is that he is coming back as Captain America.
Well, and they're doing that to Tony Stark as well. Like, he had a pretty perfect ending for a hero going through that many films and having that kind of, final moments and stuff, and actually have the audience feel it, and it means something to this cinematic universe that it was taking place in. But we all knew already, like 10 minutes after that movie ended, that they were going to pull him back at some point. Even if it was 10 years down the road, there will be a return of Robert Downey Jr. I think at one point there was talk, are they going to bring him back immediately? Will he come back as just an AI inside of an Iron Man suit where you still get to hear him and interact with him, but you don't really see him on screen or whatnot? But based on him coming back to play Doctor Doom, is that right?
Yes.
Is that the character? I'm not a big
Yes.
comic book fan. I have heard people starting to say they think that they are trying to bring back all these originals to play villains or evil versions of their characters. So there's talk that Chris Evans is coming back to be somebody else in the multiverse and potentially be a villain of some sort. I don't know which villain that would be.
No, I don't know either. I was expecting Chris Evans to come back, and I was expecting Robert Downey Jr. to come back when they announced that it was going to be Doomsday instead of the Kang Dynasty, and then it was going to be Secret Wars. And I thought everybody was going to come back for Secret Wars.
Everybody will.
Yeah. But with the Doomsday thing, I still don't even know what the angle is with getting Robert Downey Jr. Because when they announced it at Comic-Con, it said he was going to be playing Victor Von Doom, not Dr. Doom. So it's not like a code name for a variant Stark. It's Victor Von Doom. And that's why I'm just like, okay, I don't get it, but it is the Russo brothers, and their track record on Marvel movies is great. So I will judge when my butt is in the seat. But I think, again, same deal as with Gladiator 2. I think this is a situation where they're kind of playing with fire.
Well, I expect them all back, and it's not a surprise to me to hear this news. I guess the surprise will be how they utilize these actors. If they're just playing the roles we expect them to be in, I don't know how exciting that is. It's like, we expected them to come back. Okay, great. You just confirm that. But if they do something interesting already, like they're doing with Robert Downey Jr. to some degree, or I don't know, what if Chris Evans was playing a version of Iron Man or something? I don't know if I'm not saying that would really be the direction I want them to go, but like, if they're kind of bringing these people back and putting them in roles that other people have played and kind of playing around with it in that way, is Scarlett Johansson going to come back for one of these like Secret War films? It seems like disrespect that they can kill other characters, and not like any character who has died should be given the opportunity to come back, because if they don't, it's just like disrespect to those. They've disrespected Scarlett Johansson so much in the Marvel universe. I could see them do it again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And but that's also, when it comes to that particular cinematic universe, I think that's when things started to really buckle under the stress of its own success. That they made the Scarlet the Black Widow movie after she had died, and it's like, you guys really didn't. This is where it didn't really shuffle out, and I sort of started losing interest at that point. But speaking of the Marvel and dead characters who could come back, not this character, because Aaron Taylor Johnson played Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, but he is the early reviews for Kraven the Hunter have been released, and it looks like it's your diehard fans are going to enjoy it, but most of it is just a by the numbers Sony not a Spider-Man movie, kind of lifeless. But then there are people who thought that Morbius was great, so who knows?
Well, the people who thought Morbius was great did not show up to the box office because it did very poorly at the box office, as have all of the films within this cinematic universe, the Sony non-Spider-Man cinematic universe. I don't know exactly what title they give it, but other than the 3 Venom films, none of their films have been successful. And yep, they got another one coming out today, Craven, or tomorrow or whatever. And yeah, some of those early reviews have I've heard people say it's worse than Madam Web, which I have not seen, but at the time that came out, it was getting lambasted by people saying, I don't think I've sat through a movie that bad in the cinema in a long time. I can't believe that this was released in theaters with the quality. Like, you hear about people who don't like movies, or you hear about people who see something, maybe a very low budget horror movie, and they have their qualms with what they see on screen based on the budget that they have, complaints about effects and this and that. But it seemed like people were saying that Madam Web was not even up to the quality of those kind of bad movies. Like, it really should not have had the opportunity to be seen in cinemas. And people are saying that Craven is worse, which is very surprising.
Well,
I've only listened to 2 people talk about the movie, but they both said they thought it was worse than Madam Web. And I'm like, you both agreed on that? What the fuck?
Yeah. Well, and with Madam Web, like, I saw that I'm a Spider-Man fan, and I watched the trailer, and I was like, I don't even recognize why this would be called Madam Web based on the character that you see in the comic books. And then in the marketing going up to it, it was like, oh, well, everybody thought that Marissa Tomei was too young to play Aunt May. And I was like, oh, all right. And then I just heard the reviews, and I was like, I don't have to waste my 2 precious hours on your fucking movie. So, but also with Kraven the Hunter, Kraven's Last Hunt is an iconic story from Spider-Man history, and I don't understand how they can take something that is sitting right there and just adapt it, one and done villain, but have Spider-Man in the movie. It doesn't seem unreasonable to me. But I did want to. Oh, hang on a second. Protein. It's good to see you, Protein. I think Russell Crowe ate the Roman Empire. He is getting a little soggy around the midsection. And Protein says Chris Evans should be the Human Torch again. That would be, it would be interesting to see Steve Rogers and Johnny Storm stand shoulder to shoulder. Oh, and Bumpmaster 1 says ScarJo will never come back after that lawsuit. I thought that it got resolved for some reason. I thought that they were amicable again. Because, again, Scarlett Johansson enjoys getting paid.
Yeah, I remember something where when that was going on, she had another Disney project lined up. Now, it's been a few years, and I don't know if that film ever got made, what it was. It might have been another one where they were trying to launch one of their theme park rides into a movie. I forget. But now she's doing like the new Jurassic Park movie. And there was talk when she did that it was like, oh yeah, she's going to Universal. She's leaving Disney in terms of her bread and butter, I guess. So I think they might be right. Bumpmaster who said that or whatever, that there might be some reasons why she's just not willing to come back to that role. And they've already got Florence Pugh filling the role to some degree in a different capacity. So it's not like they'll be without somebody to shove in there and call Black Widow.
Right, exactly. And I'm happy with how Flo Pugh has been holding the reins on her character. She's really charming. She's a great actress. And Finity says meaningless character deaths are tight. In the Sony Pictures discount non-copyright infringement universe.
That's a good name for it.
It is not a bad name at all. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of today, from what I understand, you do have some little discs of joy.
I do. Did you say you wanted to mention something about American Psycho?
Oh, I did want to mention something about American Psycho, and the reason I didn't is because I'm afraid to pronounce the director's last name. But Austin Butler, Elvis himself, is to play Patrick Bateman in the new American Psycho, I suppose, updated adaptation. I know very little about it, aside from obviously it being an adaptation of American Psycho. I hope they don't try and update the era. And it'll be interesting to see Austin Butler as Patrick Bateman. I don't know if people can fill the shoes of the first one. What's his name? Batman. Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. Now that you mentioned based on that director, I wanted to look up. IMDb screwed their shit up. I can't even find the person by. I'm just trying to see just what they directed. Anyway, because I feel like this is another. Unless I'm wrong, I know he did the remake of Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's it. I thought he had done another remake too, and I was like, wow, this is like 3 or 4 remakes for this guy. But I guess I'm wrong on that. No, his other stuff is like the recent stuff was Bones and All. That's not a remake. Challengers from this year. Queer that's out right now with James Bond.
Daniel Craig. Yes.
But yeah, those weren't remakes. So yeah, I thought this was like a third one for him. I was like, man, but nope.
The remake master.
Yeah.
Well, I recently, I think like by recently, just in the fall, I picked up the Ultimate Edition of like the director's cut and the theatrical cut of American Psycho. Rewatched it, really taken by it again. I hadn't seen it in like over 10 years, and to find out that they're remaking it, it's a really, really good movie, open to interpretation, and all of the actors who are in there, from like Jared Leto and Christian Bale and Samantha Mathis and Reese Witherspoon, like Willem Dafoe, Justin Theroux, like it just keeps going on and on. It's such a great ensemble. And so it's not just Patrick Bateman. It's not just Christian Bale holding the whole thing aloft. It's really a great ensemble piece. And so again, maybe playing with fire, but it does have that name brand IP recognition.
Yeah, I may have to check it out whenever he makes the new one. Check out the original again. It's been a long, long time. I always found it very strange. I didn't really get it. I didn't like the kind of ambiguous way that it ends, which sometimes that's great. Like you want that ambiguity, but I don't know, with that movie, it wasn't making enough sense along the way that I was hoping by the end they would confirm some things. And when they don't, it was just like, okay, I don't know if any of this made a whole lot of sense. Did he ever really kill anybody? I don't even know. It's been a long time. It might really kind of confirm some of that for you, but I feel like it left me just scratching my head at the end of that movie for the most part. And then stuff with like William Dafoe if I'm remembering correctly, is William Dafoe like cross-dressing in this movie? Or is that that's what he does?
Boondock Saints.
That's the Boondock. Both those movies, I was like, what is going on in these fucking movies? And they both came out around the same time.
Well, and I think that they just, and why it piqued my interest and why I picked it up was that I think it was either the director or Christian Bale had said that at the end, yeah, he did everything, but he was so powerful that he got away with it, kind of thing. And I was like, I like the idea that it was all in his head.
That's what I leaned into more, which made me be like, well, then what do I fucking care? Crazy.
Yeah. But, as you can tell by my sort of glowing review of it, it's mostly me looking at a yearbook of actors from the late 90s being like, I can't believe they were all in the same movie.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. And again, to be able to do an adaptation of what is basically stream of consciousness prose, I don't know. If he thinks he can do it, he can do it. Christian Bale, says Bumpmaster 1, on the set of Terminator Salvation is American Psycho. True story. That is epic. But without further ado, this isn't, I'm not doing this, but it's the only physical media bumper we have.
Let's do it.
You will have an ice cream headache.
All right.
Show me the toys.
What do I have? Okay. Some of this is very random.
Sweet.
I hit the $5 bin at Walmart. I used to shop at Target, I didn't really shop at Walmart. I had to do some Christmas shopping or some shopping before my trip to Tahoe, and ended up in Walmart and realized they still sell DVDs and they have a $5 bin. So I rated that for everything I could get out of it. And some just random stuff I didn't own. Tommy Boy.
Hey.
I have Black Sheep, and I'm like, isn't this the better one? I don't know. So now I have both of them. $5. This was a great $5 pickup because I didn't have it. Violent Night, perfect timing for this.
Ooh.
I'm happy to add this to my little section of Christmas movies that I have. Mostly comedies, but this fits right in next to Bad Santa, I would say.
Yeah.
My wife's favorite movie of the year, and I thought it was pretty good too, The Wild Robot. She's very excited to watch this over the Christmas holiday again. So is my son. Beautiful movie. Looks great. Great story. Here's one I'm not a fan of. In fact, I rewatched it on streaming and just confirmed, man, why was this not a good movie? Everybody fucking loved it. And I hate it even more when I watched it a second time. But I have to buy it and I have to put it in my collection because it's part of the series of my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Alien Romulus. God, this movie bugs me. I couldn't even finish it. I didn't even get to the freaking hillbilly, whatever, the 10-foot tall hillbilly at the end.
Right, yeah.
I couldn't even get there.
Oh, and there is no audio commentary on that disc either, is there?
I just bought the DVD. I'm going cheap because I don't like the movie. I'm not going to spend the
Fair
extra money. I don't know that it looked all that great anyway. Okay, so now I get into the movies. I said it the last time we did this. I rarely feel comfortable buying a movie I haven't seen, even if I didn't like it, even if I didn't really like it, but I need to put it in part of my collection because I have certain things where I want to own all the movies. Mm-hmm. But I don't let myself buy movies if I haven't seen it. But now I'm in this place where I don't see movies as much as I used to. So I'm trying to take the word of people I trust and go out there and buy movies, or maybe take the word of the box office. So I don't actually have the disc here, but I got a Beetlejuice 1 and Beetlejuice 2 2-pack, which saves space on my shelf because I can move out my original Beetlejuice. And I already have a lot of Tim Burton movies, not all of them, but I have a lot of them. So it's easy just to add it, whether I liked it or not. But I hated it. It was fucking terrible. I don't know if you saw Beetlejuice 2.
Yeah.
I did not laugh once. I didn't understand why they made it. It didn't feel like the original to me. It was a complete waste of time, in my opinion. I was groaning and just wishing it was over. And so I shouldn't buy movies that I haven't seen, even though that was easy to add in my kind of Tim Burton selection and part of a sequel or whatever that I already have. But that made me nervous. It's like, that's a movie I just paid for and I really don't like it. I will probably never watch it again. And now I own it. Okay. The next one that I bought without having seen it. And I'm questioning.
Did you hate this one too?
So this is also a director that I have every movie except for one. The one movie I do not have is Mother, 2016's worst movie for me.
Sure.
But I did not have The Whale, Darren Aronofsky, and I have not seen it. I've heard it's pretty good. I heard it's a great performance. Obviously, he won Best Actor. So this is an easy thing for me to just throw in. Again, $5. Easy for me to throw into my Darren Aronofsky section. Hopefully, I'll like the movie. Now we get to the one that is on Ben's shoulders if I don't like it.
Ooh.
I don't even know if this was, I think this must be 2023 movie maybe. And Ben did a show where he talked about like the first half of the year, some of his favorites that he saw. And he mentioned this movie and it's taken me this long. I keep checking streaming service to see if it's free. It's not. So I saw it in the $5 bin. I'm like, you know what? I'll buy it. Cause he said it was a pretty good like action thriller. And I think maybe I'll like it based on what I heard him say, but I haven't seen it yet. So it's a risk. Kandahar. I don't know shit about it other than it stars Butler. What the fuck? Gerard Butler. And it's like an action thriller, I guess Middle East warfare or something. Wait, where's Kandahar? I don't even know where the fuck Kandahar is. Is that Africa?
Is it Afghanistan?
See, I don't fucking know.
I don't know.
But anyway, I'm excited to check this out and hope that Ben was right, that it was a pretty good action thriller.
Well, Ben does have, he's got tastes. He's got tastes.
And somehow I forgot to bring it. But the one other purchase that's not here with me is Strange Darlings, which might be my best movie of the year.
Oh,
With only
wow.
a couple weeks left, I don't think I've seen anything that would top it, really. So that might be my favorite movie of the year.
Well, I admire the blind buy. I think speaking of picks that Ben said that you got to see this. This is great, and he told me to get Pig, and I got Pig, and obviously it was a couple years ago, but I watched it and it blew my mind, and it was my favorite movie of that year. Yeah.
So I can share this with you because you will appreciate this. Okay, so
Sure.
I think you even know that Pig is also the movie that he recommended that I bought a couple years back or whatever. It's been sitting, or maybe a year, but whatever. It's been sitting on my shelf for a long time, tempting me, and I haven't watched it yet. But I know I'm going to like it, especially having watched A Quiet Place Day One, and it's the same director, and I freaking loved what he did with that movie, and not because it was what he did with it as a genre movie, what he did with it to make it a human story and a dramatic piece. So I know Pig's going to be great if he brings that same stuff, which I'm sure he did. But now I am slightly afraid to watch Pig because if I do love it that much, in a very weak year, 2021, which it was released, it will supplant No Time to Die on my shelf as best picture. I have on my, like, if you're looking at your shelf, on the top of your shelf, going around at the top is where I put my best pictures.
Right.
For all the years that I have done that. It's over like 30 years. And 2021, I have No Time to Die. I didn't see a ton that year. There wasn't a lot of great shit. It's the only James Bond movie that's ever, reached the best picture list for me in all the years that I've done it. I don't think you're the biggest fan of No Time to Die. I think.
No, I liked it. I'm surprised. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like it, but I
have this special place in my heart that's the year my son was born. It's a James Bond movie. My son's named James. I fell in love with the James Bond movies during COVID. I spent a lot of time at home rewatching all of them, and that's when I really, like, I could always say I was a fan of James Bond, but it was during COVID that I rewatched all of them and was like, no, I love this series. It's in my top 5 favorite series because of its consistency and its history. And so I feel bad thinking if I do watch Pig, and I probably will think it's a better made movie because I have issues with No Time to Die. It's not perfect. It's not even really a best picture quality movie in any normal year. So I'm worried when I watch it, I'm going to have to remove No Time to Die and put Pig in its proper place. But I should, because that's the way I used to do my awards. I watched everything to make sure I was picking what should be considered the best, not leaving out a gem. I needed to see them all and make my own decisions on it. And now I know there's years where that doesn't happen. And it's like, oh, do I really go back and take something out for something new? But that's my worry about finally getting around to watching Pig.
Well, I'm with you in terms of No Time to Die. It had a very special place in my heart. It was waiting. Kat and I were waiting and waiting and waiting for it to come out. And I made a stupid, ridiculous prediction. And I said, all I want is James Bond to die. And I want the end of the movie to say James Bond will return. And that happened. And I was like, I cannot believe it.
Yes.
So it was everything I wanted. And I thought it was a great wrap up to the Craig era. But yeah, Pig is a better movie.
I figure it would be. So now I really need to watch it and just make that official. Just pull the Band-Aid off of James Bond and put Pig in its rightful place.
Well, then there's no shame. There's no shame. It's still silver medalist. It's still up there for the year. But yeah, so that's a great haul. Those are great movies. I'm not surprised because I think I was overly sentimental with Beetlejuice. And I think I was trying really hard to like it. I saw it in the theater. I smiled the entire time. I have no desire to ever watch it again. So,
yeah, maybe if I'd seen it initially when it came out, I would have been riding that wave of like nostalgia or whatever. But seeing it just this past week after it's had months to kind of be considered a hit and great. I mean, I know people said it wasn't as good as the first, but they all were entertained by it. So I was just hoping to, like you said, just have a nice smile on my face while watching it and take me back a little bit. And I was just groaning and like, oh my God, really? This is what's going on?
Yeah.
And like, a lot of it was Michael Keaton. I didn't think he really felt like the original Beetlejuice. He felt like Michael Keaton in makeup. I don't know. It was weird. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the highlight of the movie is Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah.
And aside from that,
Justin Theroux, to be honest, he was one of the bigger highlights for me. His character.
Yeah, like the interaction but yeah, I can see how it would be disappointing. And there were things that after the fact I kind of thought about, like that whole MacArthur Park sequence to emulate Banana Boat. And I was just like, this was a choice.
Yeah.
And I remember in the theater being like, come on, try and like it. Try and like this part.
No.
So I
do started
get
singing. I'm like, this is it. This is going to be the big song. And I know that song. That's not a good song for this to play out through.
No, it's not. But yeah, but still decent haul. I'm glad that, keeping the physical media alive.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Thank you, Walmart, for still
Thank you, Walmart. But yeah, hopefully as we get closer to Christmas, certainly after Christmas, there will be a haul of physical medias that we can all share. But I think that without further ado, let's talk some cinematic universes.
Right on. I just need to put, let's see, maybe I got a piece of paper right here I could use.
Sure.
I just need to put something over my screen so you can see my little backdrop here.
All right.
Okay.
Magic.
No one cares about seeing me anyway. So this is the list for all you listeners out there. This is the list that we shared with each other. This is what I consider to be the confirmed cinematic universes. We have another list we'll get to that is the maybe cinematic universes. And then we have another list that is kind of like spin-offs. You could call it a cinematic universe, but really it's more like they've had one or two spin-offs and they're kind of considered sequels, not necessarily an expansive universe. But we'll kind of break them all down. But I just wanted to share that so people can be chiming in along the way and saying, oh yeah, I can see some of what you're already talking about there. I don't really have a major flow for how you want to discuss this, Scotty. If we go in the order of the questions that I posed in the email,
absolutely,
we'd be talking about our favorite one first. And I kind of want to hold on to talking about my specific favorite one a little farther down on the list. So okay. I guess we could just jump ahead to what other cinematic universes should be listed based on what list is here. Do you know of any other confirmed ones that we did not include here?
Confirmed cinematic universes. Oh, I was thinking the Transformers series.
Isn't that just a run of sequels though? Like, yeah. I guess it's kind of confusing. Like, I kind of see a cinematic universe as films that focus on completely different characters, but have those connections. And if it's still like, Bumblebee's in every movie and Optimus is in every movie, and even though the human characters kind of get changed out, I feel like it's still just a continuation, some prequels, some sequels within the same running series.
No, that makes sense. Well, you know what? And it just popped into my head is that you could technically talk about sort of the Henson cinematic universe, obviously not all directed by Jim Henson, but like the Muppet cinematic universe.
Sure.
Because you still got like Fraggle Rock, Sesame Street, and then the Muppets. And when they all crossed over, like when Piggy and Kermit get married in the Muppets Take Manhattan, and Ernie and Bert are at the wedding.
Sure.
But
I wasn't thinking about that one, but I think that could certainly be added to the list. Do we have anybody in the comments chiming in with others that they would like us to add?
Not as of yet, but if you guys in the chat do wish to add to this non-exhaustive list, please, 2 cents, hats and rings. And then the other one that I thought of, but this is not, like, I don't think it's a cinematic universe. I just, like, the Cornetto trilogy. But it doesn't necessarily take place in the same world. So it kind of goes against the idea of that cinematic universe. Like, one of the things that, and in the forefront, obviously, is going to be the MCU, is one of the things that was appealing about that is that if Captain America turned a corner, he would bump into the Hulk. And then they finally made that happen. Like Tony Stark would talk to Thunderbolt Ross. And that was the appeal of the Marvel universe. And then it translated quite well to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But when you look at like the Cornetto trilogy, it's not a sequel. It's not a trilogy based on follow-ups. But then, you know, Gary King isn't going to bump into Nicholas Angel.
Yeah, no, spiritual sequels, I guess. That's where I guess talking about the Kevin Smith movies. Are some of those similar to what you're saying with the Cornetto trilogy, where they're kind of like spiritually connected to each other, but it's not necessarily connected with the exact same. I feel like maybe with the View, how do you say it? The
View Askewniverse.
View Askewniverse. Doesn't every movie that's part of that universe have Silent J or Bob and Silent J in it?
Jay and Silent Bob, yes.
Jay and Silent Bob, whatever. See how much I know about this freaking universe.
Well, and it's interesting because when Chasing Amy came out, it kind of cemented it. But in Clerks being the original movie, Dante and Randall go to Julie Dwyer's funeral because she died at the YMCA like 2 nights before. And Mallrats actually takes place on the Friday. Clerks takes place on the Saturday. And the reason that Brandy Svenning has to be on her dad's game show, Truth or Date, is because Julie Dwyer was supposed to be there, but someone told her that the camera adds 10 pounds. So she went to the pool to do laps and then had an embolism and died. So Dante and Randall go to Julie Dwyer's funeral on Saturday, and Mallrats is the fallout of Julie Dwyer's death. And then in Chasing Amy, Alyssa says to Holden, Ben Affleck's character, that she was friends with Julie Dwyer. And he says, oh, that chick who dropped dead at the YMCA, you knew her? And then they start talking about how they were both from Red Bank, New Jersey. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, did you go to Eden Prairie Mall, which is the mall from Mallrats? What about the Quick Stop? And she's like, come on, everybody's been to the Quick Stop. There's even a flashback sequence of Coey London standing out front of the Quick Stop explaining what finger cuffs means. So it is through and through a cinematic universe. The only confusing part is that Jay and Silent Bob show up in Scream 3, which makes it so that the Scream franchise takes place in the View Askew universe.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've seen that. That's kind of the fan theory, I guess, area. Maybe not. I mean, it's not necessarily fan theory. They are clearly in there, but whether that means we should consider them part of the same universe or not, that's kind of, I think, up to fans to decide or not. I don't think it's confirmed, but yes, I agree with you. In fact, I think that's why when I listed the View Askew universe on this list, I mentioned like 13 movies and maybe more. Yeah. But that's kind of the question I have is I was looking up information on these to make sure I knew what was considered part of some of these universes if I wasn't clear. And it was saying all of his movies are part of it. But I know he has movies that have, stories that have kind of nothing to do with Jay and Silent Bob to some degree. I mean, stuff like Red State and Tusk. Are there connections, little ones in those that keep them part of that same universe? Like Cop Out and Jersey Girl, do they all have connections?
Jersey Girl, actually, I just saw Jersey Girl over the summer for the first time. And no, I didn't. I think that the Askew universe, because at the end of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Alanis Morissette shows up and she closes the book on the Askew universe. Like it is there. And then she literally closes a book so that is the end of the Askew universe. So I think that if Jay and Bob show up on screen, or if there is reference to the Quick Stop or the mall or Julie Dwyer or any of Banky Edwards or Holden McNeil, like any of these people, if they are referenced by other people and they have interacted with Jay and Silent Bob, that basically culminates into the View Askew universe, which also throws Degrassi Junior High into the Askew universe as well, because Kevin Smith was a fan of it and he directed like 4 episodes or something, and Jay and Silent Bob actually show up in Toronto. So yeah, it gets there does get to be a little bit on the peripheral, and you have to take in a little bit of marijuana consumption as to how much you believe it or if it was a hallucination.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I know some of these universes do have television and other mediums that that their universes expand to, but we're specifically talking about it as cinematic universes.
Right.
So I don't know. Do we want to just kind of run through this list real quick and give some thoughts on it? I know somebody in the chat was saying, make sure we discuss the Universal Monster Universe, which would be the first cinematic universe. It does have a lot of the same actors that come back and play the same roles throughout a number of the films. I forget how many there are, but there's 20 or 30 movies considered part of that cinematic universe, all the way up through Creature of the Black Lagoon in the 50s. And some of those later films, like in the 40s, before you got to the 50s, where the universe was starting to die out, and just much like some of the current ones, just trying to find anything to draw their audience and combine whatever they can. That's when you started to see the Universal Monsters crossing over with Abbott and Costello and trying to create kind of a new horror comedy blend. And I think some of those were success, and they made a number of those for a while. So that was kind of a second life for that universe, which is what Marvel's trying to figure out for themselves right now. Hopefully they don't pair up their superheroes with Abbott and Costello, or who would be considered the comedic duo of today.
Yeah. Let me think. I don't know. Oh.
Key and Peele. No.
Yeah, exactly. Key and Peele meets Doctor Strange. Yeah. Well, and also, would you consider the Monster Squad to be part of that Universal Monsters era?
It can. I honestly was thinking, okay, if we kind of went that route, then even things like Renfield from last year could fall into that. If we want to take films that came out, years and years after, that took inspiration and try to pay really faithful homage to those original monsters. As a fan theory, 100%, I'd be happy to add them and build out that universe a bit more. But I think the true end of what is confirmed as the Marvel universe, Universal Monster Universe, ended in the 50s.
Okay. Well, and that is basically the culmination, and as you mentioned, is they were sort of there's no reference to Dracula in Frankenstein, or Creature from the Black Lagoon doesn't talk about the Invisible Man. It isn't until you get to Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein that it is, these guys, they do know it. Like, they exist in the same world. If you turn a corner, Dracula could bump into Frankenstein or the Wolfman or something. And so it is sort of that mash at the end. But up until that point, I think it was mostly just, as you mentioned, studio, recurring players, like, what's his name? Claude Rains is all over those movies. It's great. Yeah. Always excited to see Claude Rains.
And Boris Karloff. And Lon Chaney. They all come back in different roles throughout the years.
Yes. Yeah. And I do like it. Like, it is a jewel to have it so that they all exist together. And I'm sure we'll discuss it again when we talk about the Dark Universe. How that sometimes when we get to failed universes. Yes.
All right. Well, let's move along. Try and move through some of these quickly. A lot of these I don't have a ton of knowledge. Like, I'm not a big Godzilla fan, so I don't really. I know as a kid I watched a lot of those on Saturday morning type, catch them or whatever. But I guess most of the Godzilla movies that were made by Toho are considered part of the same universe. I'm not really sure on that, but it came up as in the list of what's out there as confirmed cinematic universes. It was one that was being listed.
Well, and I would say so as well, especially with things like Ghidorah and Mothra. Like there were times when, like King Ghidorah would fight Godzilla, and Godzilla needed the help of Mothra, and so those little twins that would like call like the mistresses of Mothra. I think they do cross over fairly well, and also it was budgetary, just because they're like, well, we have this suit and we can mix it with that suit, and well, why don't we put these suits together and they'll fight? And so I think it was an established universe, because loved seeing those team ups and bouts.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm actually interested in maybe finding out which ones would be fun to watch with my son. Like, I grew up on those as a kid, and so I think he'd at least have a little bit of an entertainment value of us just sitting down and watching some of those classic Godzilla movies together. But I got to see which ones are actually worth the time to sit through.
Well, and I don't know how old James is, but
3. He's very young.
He's very young. Okay, and well then,
but he'll still get this. He'll still get the smashing monsters. That's all he needs.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you need. But I think Son of Godzilla is actually, because it is a wish fulfillment of a young boy who wants to be friends with Godzilla and imagines himself as being like the son of Godzilla, and it's a little bit more cheeky, not as serious, it's not scary, and it sort of introduces more of those sillier monster fight situations. I think that would be a brilliant gateway.
Nice. I'll look for that one. I can picture the little son of Godzilla. I think I've seen what it looks like the person in the Son of Godzilla costume.
Yeah, exactly. And he does a little dance and stuff, and so it is kid friendly. It is great, and not as heavy as, like, don't start with the first one, especially if he's 3.
No. I was gonna pick something from like the 70s. It's totally campy and cheesy. All right, well, let's move on, because this one actually I find pretty interesting. I know I'd heard some of this, but didn't really know some of the details, so I looked it up. The Shermer, Illinois verse,
yes,
which does include the first 5 John Hughes films, which you would think I'd have that information in front of me, but fucking IMDb sucks now. Anyway, I know that it was like, I should have this info in front of me.
Pretty in Pink,
which isn't directed by him. So that's why in the list that you have there, the ones that I put plus are films that he's involved with, but he didn't direct them. But they still have a connection to Shermer, Illinois. Vacation, Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful, Home Alone, and maybe
Weird
more.
Science.
But yeah, in those first 5 that I was saying, it's like Weird Science, Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club, obviously 2 other ones that I'm not thinking of right now, but
well, and the thing is,
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is apparently connected to it as well.
Really?
And yeah.
Okay.
There's just a mention of Shermer, Illinois is what it is. All it is either a mention of the town or the high school that most of the movies took place in.
Right. And I think that that's great. And obviously it's not something that ever really came to fruition, but knowing that Ferris and John Bender went to the same school is kind of rad. And Bender probably hated Ferris.
It's kind of like the Castle Rock, which we're going to get to in the maybe universes. It's like it's a fictional town that an author or a creator utilized over and over in their stories, and even other people along the way adopted it, and now you have this kind of fictional town that draws in multiple cinematic films into its universe.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate it. Also, it's kind of reinforced for me because of the View Askew universe, because in Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob try to go to Shermer, Illinois, because they watched the movies and no one smoked weed. And he's like, we could be the blunt connection in Shermer, Illinois. There is no Shermer, Illinois.
That's freaking awesome. See, I didn't know that. That's great.
Now, the The Tarantino verse. I love this because I agree. And I think that there are a lot of clues in the Quentin Tarantino universe. Not least importantly, Big Kahuna Burger and Red Apple cigarettes.
Yeah, because those are the ones that really draw, like Red Apple connects you all the way back to the Hateful Eight and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though the time periods are so, sorry, my lights went off. One second.
Yeah, no, and with the there's Red Apple cigarettes going back to Django Unchained, and in Hateful Eight they have the Red Apple tobacco, and that goes straight forward to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the most recent film. But there are also character connections as well. I think Mr. White is asked about Alabama from True Romance,
which connects that. Yeah. I mean, obviously written by Quentin, so it's connected. Ben wouldn't like it, and that's part of why I put the all QT films plus True Romance, Dusk Till Dawn, maybe more. The maybe more that Ben would not like, because I heard you guys talking last week, would be Natural Born Killers,
mm-hmm.
because the Ray Scagnetti or whatever.
Yeah, Scagnetti.
Scagnetti is mentioned. In multiple films, including that one. He's a character there. I think there's other characters as well. It's connected. Ben may not like it, but in my mind, it's part of the Quentin Tarantino universe. Dusk Till Dawn is connected by the sheriff that shows up in the opening scene.
And Big Kahuna Burger.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yep.
And I think based on that, there are other Robert Rodriguez films that also connect. Like, if we're really going to take this if one film connects to another film, that puts every film that connects to that film as part of its own universe, then it's almost like all of Robert Rodriguez and all of Quentin Tarantino's films are connected to some degree, because characters like Machete show up in multiple films of Robert Rodriguez's.
Yeah. Even Spy Kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold
on. Yeah. Just make sure he knows to not set the alarm without coming to check with me. Cool. Thanks. Sorry.
But I remember a little while ago, there was a differential. There is a real universe in the Quentin Tarantino universe, and then there are movies that the people in the Quentin Tarantino universe would go and watch. So, like,
which aren't many. Like, I know he came up with that to explain how Kill Bill's tone is not as realistic as his previous films. But what has he made? I guess maybe Death Proof was the other one, but I don't honestly, what other one is not supposed to really have taken place and just be a film? Inglourious Basterds is real, because there's a film version of it in
Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
So other than Kill Bill, has he made another film that actually falls in that classification of it's a movie within the universe?
I want to say he was including Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
As a movie that, like, Jules and Jules would go and watch.
That makes sense.
Because no vampires. But and it's weird though, because if Death Proof is a movie within that world, or then that means that that eliminates Earl McGraw. Like, Earl McGraw is just a fictional character and not real, because if you consider that, Earl McGraw is in Kill Bill, in Planet Terror, and Dusk Till Dawn. All four of those are supposed to be the movies that the guys would go see.
Well, that would make sense that at least they kept that character limited to the films that should not be real films, but be movies. That's interesting.
It is. It's interesting, but I've always liked that through line, and the not only with just the product, the fictional product placement, but also like the fact that Lee Donowitz, the producer from True Romance, is supposed to be like the grandson of Private Donowitz from Inglourious Basterds, and it weaves even what's Christopher Walken's character, Captain Kuntz. Django kills his great grandfather, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. He's on the bill for the Wanted poster. So there
That's
are
right.
those kinds of references, and it is
Uh-huh.
maintained throughout. I love it. I think it's great, and I think it adds
Definitely
just sort of
is.
it adds a flavor to that entire series or that entire career.
Well, and then Michael Parks also shows up as another character within Kill Bill as the
Yes,
Esteban or something like that,
yes, yes.
which is, but again, that's still part of the movies in the universe, not the reality of the universe. So he can be however many characters he wants to be
Right.
within that.
It's rad. It's rad.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's probably one of the best because Tarantino does have that control over his films, and so he's been able to keep it going. The maybe more films that you could potentially connect to the Quentin Tarantino universe would be Out of Sight, because
Oh yeah,
Michael Michael Keaton plays the same character in both Jackie Brown and Out of Sight.
yes.
And again, that's like Elmore Leonard. So then you're starting to get into like shared characters that came from another author. Does that really mean they're part of the same universe? But I think in that case that I don't have an issue adding that one to Quentin Tarantino's universe. I mean, clearly Quentin has his version of it, and then there might be the one that you would expand where you add in these other connections that other filmmakers have tied it to characters that he's utilized.
Yeah. Well, and I've even mentally separated. I love Jackie Brown, and I like Out of Sight quite a bit. I think it's the only movie that Jennifer Lopez acts in. Every other time she just sort of performs. But I prefer to think of those two as sort of the companion Elmore Leonard universe. I would almost put those alongside like Get Shorty and Not Be Cool.
It's in there.
Yeah,
Be Cool.
it is in there whether I like it or not. So it's, and also Four Rooms for the Tarantino verse.
Oh, that's right. So I guess Four Rooms might be part of the films that the movies people watch and not a real story, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It's kind of, yeah, that makes sense. It's a little, it's been a while since I've watched it.
Now that you mention it, that means there's a movie I don't own in my Quentin Tarantino collection. I don't think I have Four Rooms, because you just don't think of it as a Quentin Tarantino film. It's just a story within.
Yes.
But I don't know. I like to know that I own, especially somebody who's in my top 5 favorite filmmakers. I typically like to own all their movies, good or bad. So I might have to get Four Rooms. Thank you for mentioning that. On next week's physical DVD, you might see that.
I don't even know if there was a Blu-ray.
Yeah.
If there was a Blu-ray release, but you don't really need it.
I'd probably never even watch it if I bought it. It would just feel good to know that it's part of it. It's there on the shelf.
I remember the first time I watched it, and I was sort of nonplussed by it. And then revisiting it last year or the year before when Kat and I were going through all the Tarantino flicks, and I rewatched it, and I love that movie so much.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. All right. Well, we talked about the View Askewniverse.
Yes.
We get to the big one.
Yes.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe. The one that has truly showed the roadmap for how to be successful, but also lately showed the roadmap to show you how it can all fall apart too.
Yeah. Well, and this is because that it also begs the question as to if it's the Marvel Cinematic or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then that involves a lot of television at this point too. And I think that's where I don't think the Marvel Cinematic Universe was doing badly. I think it's when they started incorporating far too much homework. Like it's one thing to have a connected cinematic universe and something completely different to demand homework be done by the audience. And I've heard people say that that's a BS argument. You don't have to, because there's probably going to be like a 3-minute recap of to get you up to speed. I don't think I'll have to have seen the Black Widow movie to understand what's going on in Thunderbolts. But I think I think it is sort of suffering from the weight of its own success. But it is also, that was a brilliant moment. It was beautiful. That just closing post-credit sequence when Samuel L. Jackson changed movies for superhero movies forever. And you think you're the only superhero on the block, and it propelling through that. You have Tony Stark talking to Thunderbolt Ross. You get Agent Coulson dealing with Thor, and Captain America, obviously, and you get Howard Stark. You get Samuel L. Jackson again at the end of the first Avenger. Obviously, it all explodes hugely with the Avengers, and we spin off from there. I love it. I do get a little, and again, this is the weight of its own success. But like when someone shows up for like when Falcon shows up for 4 minutes in Ant-Man, and I'm like, I don't really.
It's all that forced connection at that point. Oh, we need a scene that makes this a bit more connected to the Avengers.
Which you didn't, and I do like that, but I think that there did come a point where I was watching and I was like, okay, so I'm still waiting for the cameo. Where's the cameo? And it wasn't because it was organic, and it was forced. It was something that I was like, oh, okay, I'm not really going to these now to see the expansion of the universe. I just want to get that little, I want the hit of dopamine. Just give me a cookie, please. And so, but I celebrate the first, like up until Endgame. I don't think that there's any in there that I wouldn't watch again.
I agree with you. I think they were very consistent through that run, building to exciting events, cinematic events. I wasn't one of the people sitting there at the end of Infinity War crying, going, "Oh my God, they killed these people, and what's going to happen?"
Yeah.
Like, I'm not an idiot. I knew we will see them all back next summer. You've already told us there's another movie.
Yeah.
So sat back, waited for that event, and I also am not so in love with Marvel movies that I thought Endgame was the greatest thing to ever grace our screens. But it was a nice culmination of all the work that they put in to connect this universe over however many films it took to get to that point. And then it does seem like they did the homework and they did the hard work to try to navigate and keep this all connected and making sense and seem like it's building on itself and it's entertaining leading up to Endgame. But then everything they've done since then just shows that they didn't have enough of a plan that went beyond that. They had some vague ideas. Maybe we're going to spiral into this multiverse stuff. And maybe it was just too soon to spiral into that because it opened the door to too many possibilities and muddled everything. But it's really a shame that we still don't have the strength of the MCU the way it was leading up through Endgame, keeping us leading up to the next cinematic event. Like they're telling us the next thing that's coming is supposed to be exciting, but why? I don't even know the first reason that we're leading towards Doomsday and what's the other one called?
Secret Wars.
Secret Wars. Like I don't think they've laid much groundwork that's leading us to what those movies are going to be. And they're supposed to come out in like 2 to 3 years. Whereas you had 10, 11 years or so bringing you, and however many films, almost 20 movies, getting you to that cinematic event of Infinity War and Endgame.
Well, and it was an expansion. Like as phase 1 was all of the individual heroes, and then the culmination to that, all the groundwork, and all we wanted to do was get those characters together. And what an explosion of amazing that was. And then you zoom out and each phase sort of builds upon the previous, and there's Easter eggs and there's references. And then by Endgame, like you needed 2 Avengers movies to make it as epic as it was. Yeah. And that was perfect. And it's like, careful, Icarus, you're flying too close to the sun. Mm-hmm. Now, what are we going to do here? Like, and I just figure after that, with the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, continuing on, and okay, now what are we fighting? They didn't really establish anything. It was more like setting up the multiverse. Then they tried to set up Kang the Conqueror, but they did that in the Loki TV show. And I'm sorry, if your big villain is introduced on a small screen,
Yeah,
I
that's that
kinda
homework we're
lost
talking
interest.
about. Yeah.
So we'll see, but I think it's going to be at this point the way that Marvel Cinematic Universe goes kind of reminds me of how I started collecting comics in the late 80s and going through the 90s, and they got into all these variant covers and supersized specials that you had to be a part, and it was like the crossover event every season. But you don't really have to follow along for everything, just show up for the big promotions. And that's what's happening now with the cinematic universe. Is I don't know if I'm going to go see Thunderbolts. I might go see Captain America: New World Order. I will go see Doomsday, but like along the way, I don't like the birthday party clowns on the internet who say that everything sucks and you shouldn't waste your time with new Disney product. But that's more, if it's like, okay, I'll see what the reviews are. If I hear that it's okay to good, I'll check it out. But if I hear like everybody crapping all over everything, why do I need to lay down my money and give you my time?
We got a comment down here that's bringing up from Protein. What about the Verhoeven universe? Total Recall, RoboCop, and Starship Troopers all feel like the same world, only different points in time. That's interesting. Yeah, I can kind of see that.
I do like that.
That's a fun fan theory way to look at it, for sure. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and again, yeah, it's perfect because near future, farther future, distant future. Yeah, I like that, Protein. But and also
Basic Instinct into there and Showgirls.
Sure, why not?
And Hollow Man, why not? I mean, they could all be in there at different points of time.
We just, now we're gonna have to revisit the Verhoeven oeuvre and see if there's any connective tissue.
Well, that's like that Reddit quote that I put at the bottom of the email.
Yes.
Someone said Star Wars takes place in the same universe as Remains of the Day, Caddyshack, Taxi Driver, No Country for Old Men, and Casablanca. It just takes place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yes. Well, I guess, everybody's in the Star Wars.
Everybody's in the Star Wars universe if you look at it that way.
I always liked the idea that Indiana Jones would go on an archaeology expedition and find like Chewbacca's skeleton. And then so Indiana Jones and Han Solo exist in the same universe.
Do not put it past them.
Yeah.
They're all owned by Disney now, so who knows?
That is true.
Well, okay, so that begs a question because our next one is the DCEU, 15 DC comic book movies that ended with Aquaman 2 or something being the last official entry in that. Do you think we are going to get down the road far enough where Marvel and DC are not making the money they want to make and they say, let's team up together. Let's put Iron Man and Batman in the same movie. You think that's going to happen?
I think it's a matter of time. I dread it. But like, I don't know. They've done that crossover. They've done like the Justice League versus the Avengers in the comic books. And it just reeks of gimmicky cash grab that I'm not really that interested to see. Like, I don't need to see Batman take on the Green Goblin. Like and it would sort of start out the same way that the first Avengers did, is like, we get all these characters together. So you have Batman and Iron Man not liking each other and then respecting each other begrudgingly. Like, I'm just like, and then they're going to go and they're going to team up and take on the Joker. Like, the Joker doesn't belong in the Marvel universe. I think he's too brutal a villain. But yeah, I think it will eventually happen. I think, and I know that there are plenty of comic book people who would love to see it happen. It's just, that's not for me. That's just throwing all your toys in a box and shaking it.
Well, DC is starting a new cinematic universe starting next year with Superman. I do like James Gunn's work with the Guardians of the Galaxy, so I'm kind of interested to see what he's going to do with Superman. Um, I'll be there to check it out. We'll have to see. It's the beginning stages. I think what he's, knowing how the DCEU fell apart and could not stay consistent over the 15 films, and what Marvel was able to do during that same period and be successful. The DCEU rushing out of the gate, I think they all even admit it right now, that they just rushed out of the gate with a quick Superman versus Batman movie too early and not taking the time that Marvel did to set up and build to these events. I think James Gunn is very aware of that and going to correct that with the pace that he builds the new universe. And so I'm excited to see a version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the way that it was built done with the DC characters. Again, I'm not a huge comic book fan on either end. I'm a movie fan, and these movies can be very entertaining. So, I'm there for it if they can take the time, plan it out, and do it right.
Well, and I'm with you in terms of having faith in James Gunn, but I think that they're already off to a sort of confusing start, considering that we have the Matt Reeves The Batman universe, and then it's going to be parallel and not necessarily integrated to the rest of the DC movies proper. There's going to be a point where there are going to be competing Batmans. Like, they're going to do Batman Brave of the Bold, and we're going to be dealing with Matt Reeves' The Batman 2. I don't know how it's going to work, if it's going to be like an Elseworlds, same thing happening with Joker and Joker 2. Like, these are sort of set aside, and you don't necessarily need these to follow the continuity proper. And I find that to be like, okay, if we're not building a cinematic universe and we're just doing installments of these characters, fine, I guess.
I think that works if they can find the right tone. Again, I don't want the new DC universe to feel too much like the tone, the very safe tone that we get in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I like that maybe the DC universe will take some more risks and occasionally have a grittier, more R-rated kind of film or whatever along the way. But I think that's how they can differentiate what is considered the main DC universe under James Gunn and the Elseworld or these other films, is just making sure that their tones differ enough. Because clearly the Matt Reeves stuff is taking itself really serious. And for the imagery and things we've seen and the casting choices on the Superman movie seem more playful and typical of James Gunn. A lot of fun probably to be had there. So I think at least with those two, you're going to feel the tone will set them apart very distinctly. But as other films come up that have more playful tones, who knows how confusing it might start to feel.
Yeah, and we'll see, and maybe it'll turn out that the sort of the direction that DC is going to be going isn't necessarily the crossover crazy situation that we've been seeing with Marvel. Like, you're always going to get, like in Superman, you may get a reference to Gotham. In the Batman, in the Matt Reeves Batman, it might be, oh yeah, no, he's on his way to Metropolis by now, kind of thing. Which, like, that was something that I absolutely adored when it was Batman Forever, and the circus had left town, and Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne says, oh, they're probably halfway to Metropolis by now, and that was like the first time that there had been that. What Batman said Metropolis? This could be I want to see this.
I guess that connects it to the Superman universe of the 80s. Right?
And but I love those when, like, those Easter eggs were literally just Easter eggs. They weren't promises.
Yeah, exactly.
But we can talk about that when we get to the failed cinematic universes. But it's interesting. It's interesting because both Marvel and DC, with like Spider-Man No Way Home and The Flash, they kind of, and more recently with Deadpool and Wolverine, they've sort of folded all of the non-Marvel Studios movies into their universes. They've absorbed everything that came prior. There's Christopher Reeve in The Flash, and
That's
George
true.
George Clooney shows up at the end of The Flash, and it's like, when you get into these multiverses, not only are you killing death itself, but you're also making it so that you're including Easter eggs to bring back these actors, beloved actors playing beloved characters, but it messes up any sense of continuity. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy about cinematic universes is when there is at least some sort of, you can square that. You can say, okay, that makes sense, and I get that. But you watch, like, apparently now the Fox movies, like all of the Marvel Fox movies, from Blade to Daredevil to X-Men, they've all been folded into the Deadpool existence, which is being folded into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. And all of these, it just gets to be, it's when it's fun. And going back to Batman Forever, when you say Metropolis, that's all you need to do. And now you have to figure out why Johnny Storm looks exactly like Steve Rogers.
Yeah, well, when we move on to the maybe cinematic universes, I want to expand a little bit on what you were talking about with the folding of different, pre-existing films that have now been brought into these cinematic universes.
Mm.
The bottom half of this list is not a bunch of stuff I want to spend much time, because I do want to move on to the maybe cinematic universes. Monsterverse, 5 Godzilla and Kong movies. It's still coming together. None of them, other than Kong Skull Island, I haven't really been a fan of any of those movies, and even that one I'm not a big fan of. It was entertaining, but I guess they've been kind of planning this out a little bit and trying to keep it connected over the 5 films that they've made so far. I'm going to skip the Sony one for a second. X-Men universe. X-Men has its hits, has its misses. Clearly didn't really think through, like when they wanted to reset the timeline to some degree and go with First Class, they start muddling the actual years that things are supposed to take place and the ages that people are supposed to be. And that really kind of screws up the connected universe. That one is a little bit all over the place when you factor in Deadpool and Wolverine movies, because they some of those movies almost feel like they're taking place in different universes. But X-Men is just, it's the hot thing. Whether it's, I guess the X-Men universe kind of was coming along before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It really was just at that time, just kind of considered a series of X-Men movies and sequels. But I think they always had plans to do those spin-off films. Like in the early days, they wanted to make the Wolverine standalone movie and the Magneto standalone movie and some of these other ones. So they had plans to kind of do it. They just didn't really get it going until Marvel already had started putting the work in on their end. But I'm still happy with some of what we got out of the true X-Men universe. I'm not going to mention the Lego verse. I just put that on here because it was on a list, but whatever.
Yeah.
Conjuring. Clearly, Conjuring is trying to make this cinematic horror universe, which is cool, because so many of these other ones are kind of the same thing of chasing the Superman movies or the superhero movies. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to have some variety there with the horror series, but they've got more misses than hits at this point. So it's starting to become uninteresting. No matter what they say that they're going to keep it going or add to it. I've already kind of lost interest. It's like, I don't care. I see them. It's less about how they're connected and the fun of that. The movies probably work better when you don't think of them as connected, especially the first 2 Conjuring movies are really the only good movies in the whole 9 picks there. Yeah.
Well, but again, horror movies being cheap to produce and you have a deadline for Halloween every year kind of thing. And also, like, yeah, you can pump them out, but I honestly don't have much experience with the Conjuring verse. Is that the one with Patrick Wilson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then they have the Annabelle movies.
Annabelle movies and Nun movies and some other one, Curse of La Llorona. Okay, so those were confirmed cinematic universes. Now
Okay.
we're going to jump into maybe cinematic universes and fan theories and also failed universes. So let me talk about Sony's non-Spider-Man universe, because as of today, the reports are it's done. A day before they even release Craven into theaters. I do not understand the shooting yourself in the foot aspect that DCEU did by telling everyone, hey, this is the end of this, even though we still have films to release. Clearly, those films are not going to be successful enough to garner sequels. And that's basically what they said about Craven. Now, it sounds like Craven is bad enough that like it doesn't matter. They knew the movie was bad and not going to be a success. But what little money it could have made this weekend, why would you come out today, or yesterday, I believe, is when the reports came out of them saying, yes, the Sony non-Spider-Man universe is done. This is the last film to be released in that. So we can chalk this up as a failed cinematic universe at this point.
Yes. But it's also like, I don't know, your connective tissue over the non-Spider-Man verse is the fact that we all wanted Spider-Man in the Venom movie, in the Craven movie, in the Morbius movie. Like, yeah, I don't get it. And then now I thought that the next, like, I'm not sure if they're making Spider-Man 4 or if they're doing a Spider-Man over at Sony. I haven't.
Yeah, Spider-Man 4. So it'll be a continuation of what we got in No Way Home, which is connected to the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Well, but yeah, I will see. I'm assuming that well, Marvel makes better Spider-Man movies than Sony does, and Sony gets money for licensing out Spider-Man to the MCU, as odd as that is. And so I hope that the collaboration continues. I like seeing Kevin Feige look awkward sitting beside Amy Pascal. It just makes me giggle.
Well, in the maybe cinematic universes that are up here on the screen, we have the Spider-Man verse. So some of these I just kind of made up how I see it. Some of these were the way other people have seen this. I think if you watch, so No Way Home connects all three versions of live action Spider-Man that we've seen before, which I think is what is that? 6, 7, 8 movies. You could connect any movie that Tom Holland's Peter Parker showed up in, technically. So it would go beyond the 10 movies that I'm listing here. Because, you have 8 movies for live action Spider-Man. Then you have the 2 animated across the Spider-Verse, into the Spider-Verse and across the Spider-Verse. And those ones reference things that they did in the Marvel movies. There's direct references to things that happen to those characters. So I see that as connect, and the whole point of those is that there is this universe of Spider-Man, this connected universe. So I think those films actually connect. Even without No Way Home, those films would have connected all of our Spider-Man films. But No Way Home clearly connects all of the Spider-Man films. So it technically could go, if you're going to add in things like Infinity War and Civil War and any other film that Tom Holland's Spider-Man showed up in, it would go beyond 10 films. But whatever. It's not a true cinematic universe. It's just films that Spider-Man's in that all connect now because of the animated ones.
Oh, right. I forgot about, the Across the Spider-Verse is
that connects all of them.
Yeah.
But if you're going to connect all of those films, basically because of No Way Home, connecting the larger MCU to everything that's Spider-Man related, and now Deadpool being in the MCU and connecting to everything Fox related, even things like Blade and Daredevil and all of that randomness of the early 2000s. I'd have to go look at the exact list. Does that include Nicolas Cage and Ghost Rider? To some degree, it could all you. This is why I wrote in here MCU plus all other comic book movies, because outside of DC products, everything that's ever been made by Marvel is slightly now connected because of what they did in Deadpool and what they did in No Way Home. It's technically a universe that encompasses every Marvel product that's ever been made into a movie. Punisher, all of them. Because of how they set it up in Deadpool and Wolverine, that those films are seen as banished, realities that were trimmed and banished to the whatever they called it, the wasteland or whatever, the void. But that concept, which I thought was actually pretty cool, in my mind, technically, as a fan theory, again, we're talking maybe cinematic universes. This is not a confirmed thing, but the way that those films are set up, I see it all connected now. Even before Wolverine and Deadpool, I was already telling people, when people would do, hey, here's my ranking of the MCU. Once No Way Home came out, I did not understand why you didn't have a lot of comic book movie fans ranking the other Spider-Man movies as part of the MCU. That's not the way they see it. Oh, the MCU is only the films that Marvel says are part of it. Well, they just added those characters. So that means the original films with those characters should be considered part of the MCU. And nobody seems to really say that that's reality, but it kind of is. You can't avoid it now.
Well, but they've separated their peas and carrots in that. And even in Deadpool Wolverine, they do specify which Earth he goes to. So when he meets Happy Hogan at the beginning, he's on Earth 616. And then I forget the numbers, like 1012 or something, when he's back in his own universe with Negasonic Teenage Warhead. But it's the parallel universes that within, like, I agree with you that those movies all exist within the same overall tapestry of multiversal galaxies, but the separation of those things are because it's a different universe, and so you can sort of let certain things slide.
But as a cinematic universe,
yes,
I would say they are all now part of the same cinematic universe. Within their world, they can call them multiverses and different universe 616 and all that. Like, they can label them how they want to within the storytelling. But in terms of the cinematic universe, the collection of movies that fall under a heading of cinematic universe, I think you can't deny that all the Spider-Man movies are now part of the MCU. Personally, it's the way I see it. I will not talk about the MCU without including them moving forward, because because the Sam Raimi films are great, and they should be talked about at the top of the MCU when you're discussing what are the great films in the MCU. I kind of like the fact that I can now include the two great Spider-Man films that he made. The third one, not as great, but whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I can, but I also and I have conversations with people, and sometimes they deal with the subject at hand as if it is, you need a slide rule and an abacus because there has to be a solution to it. And this isn't math. Like, it is supposed to be just what they will eventually do. And what I think, and it's up to your mileage may vary as a fan, is if you want to see all of the Spider-Man movies now being canonical, which is the harsh word of it. It's like, oh, okay, so this means, like, even if you look at the internal logic as to what happens in Spider-Man No Way Home, there are characters. The reason that they're trying to send them back to their own universes and cure them is so that they will live, and they were brought over the moment just before they died. But Electro never died, and I don't think Electro died. Maybe, but I know for sure that the Lizard turns back into One-Armed Bandit at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 1. So they're even within the internal logic doesn't make a whole bunch of sense in that singular movie. And then to say that that is the Rosetta Stone that incorporates those other movies into the MCU, then it does have to line up very specifically to allow for that. And if it doesn't line up to your tastes, then you are free to dismiss it as being like, it's the Raimi verse, the Webb verse, and the MCU Spider-Man kind of thing. So I get both sides of the argument.
I agree. I agree with that. I think it's more my love of the Raimi films that has me excited to now include it.
Right.
You know, whether that's correct or not, it's just the way I like to look at it.
And hey, more power, sir. More power. But that's also like, I can see as we get shorter down or a little bit further down the list is with all Star Trek. And so the 13 movies, there are some people who absolutely will not regard the JJ Kelvin universe at all. Like there is I travel in Star Trek circles, and there is something called the 735 Club. And so anything between 1966 and 2005, there is your Star Trek. That is all you get, because everything that was made after that, produced by J.J. Abrams or Alex Kurtzman, is apocryphal. It is basically, it's like, did you read this novel? And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't really count to the overall Star Trek story. But I can square the last three movies, like 2009, Into Darkness, which I didn't like, and Beyond, which I did, because it does incorporate that parallel universe. I can accept it. I square it because I like 2009 to a certain extent, and I do enjoy Beyond very much. But there are people who are like, there's no way this isn't Star Trek. You turned Star Trek into Star Wars. J.J. Abrams said on The Daily Show he was never a Star Trek guy, so he's not allowed to play with my toys, kind of thing. And so it is up to the preference of the audience, because again, this isn't a kidney transplant. This is something that we watch for 2 hours so that we forget we're going to die for a while.
But I do know that Star Trek is, you know, its fans take it very serious and take what's considered canonical very serious. Being just a casual fan of mainly the movies, it was easy for me just to accept the alternate timeline that's being presented in the J.J. Abrams stuff. I think Captain Finity mentioned earlier about that, like the Spock character is supposed to be the same, but the Kirk one isn't to some degree. And that is kind of the way it seemed like it was presenting it, of like clearly it's a variation of Kirk because his life is going in a different direction in terms of like his connection to his father and all that stuff. But the Spock character was presented as the same character. So I don't know. I'm happy to put them all together. I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan where it bugs me if somebody, you know, wants to keep them separate. I think it's open for whatever the fans want to do when it comes to the Star Trek stuff. But I do see them all connected, and I'm looking forward to them continuing that. Like I want to see where they can go next. I want to see Quentin Tarantino direct one and somehow work it into his universe.
Well, yeah. My biggest thing, I don't know, like it's funny that it's based on Star Trek, is that I remember watching the Ebert and Roper. I think it was Roper at that point. I don't think it was Siskel. I think he had died already. But they were doing a review of Star Trek Generations, and they were talking about Captain Kirk meeting Captain Picard being sort of like if Gene Autry were to meet Clint Eastwood. Yes, they're both cowboys, but they don't necessarily need to be in the same movie together. Yeah. So that's sort of how I treat it. It's like, and if you like it, you like it. That's great. I don't want to make anybody stop liking things. But also I don't want people to tell me that I can't like things if I do.
For sure. Hey, there's a comment I think that you would appreciate here by Ben Stockton. If you want to read that.
The Lawyer and Jay and Silent Bob reboot was in Zack and Miri Make a Porno, and porno is what is filmed in the X universe. Clerks and Maxine are in the same universe. The existence of pornography does not make it a cinematic universe, but I like where your head is at with the Justin Long in Reboot and Zack and Miri.
but it does make it interesting with Scream slightly being connected. So now you have these two horror franchises now connecting into the View Askew universe.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's
And if it's Justin Long you're talking about, man, we could bring in some more of his horror movies. Like,
well, yeah.
What's what the hell was that one recently?
If we can't remember, I know he did one recently.
Barbarian, that one. Barbarian,
yeah.
And Tusk is a Kevin Smith movie, but
yes, and I've never seen Tusk. The entire premise for it kind of weirds me out, but yeah, and I've never seen Yoga Hosers. I started watching it, and did
he finish that trilogy?
No,
he didn't do Moose Jaws. That's the one I want to see the most. The fuck, get on it, man! Get to making Moose Jaws. Damn it!
I don't even know what he's making right now. I don't know what he's up to. And then Protein says X-Men officially became a universe when Days of Futures Past came out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that is arguably that's your Avengers moment in the X-Men cycle.
And it might be the best. Well, yeah, it might be the best of their films.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, arguably, I would say.
I like 1 and I like 2, and then I like that one. I guess I don't know which one's my favorite, but
and then and First Class is great. I love First Class.
So we'll just mention a couple of these real quick because there's better ones to talk about here. Spider-Man verse, only because they say that. So I guess the Supergirl movie is technically part of the same universe that the 4 Superman movies are, and then
yes.
Bryan Singer's 2006 Superman Returns is supposed to be a sequel to Superman 2 or something. Yes. Like they write off 3 and 4 or something to that degree.
Or at the very least,
if you're going to retcon films and cut them loose, I don't know how that works with you being part of a cinematic universe because you're kind of trying to make your own niche within the universe and cutting films out. But that was listed when I was, again, researching, what are other possible cinematic universes. It did mention those being all connected, so I threw it up there. The E.T. Star Wars one is nothing really important. I think a lot of people know this, that in Phantom Menace, they're showing either Phantom Menace or in the third one, but there's a scene in the big Senate room where there's all these aliens in the little pods listening to Palpatine. And there's a collection of 3 ET aliens in one of the little Senate pods. You just see them in passing. They don't focus on them, but that made everyone say, oh, well, the ET creatures exist in the Star Wars universe. So again.
And also in ET, he sees when he's got the ghost costume on and they're going out at Halloween, he sees a kid dressed up as Yoda.
That's
and
true.
It's like, oh.
Which he reckoned. Okay, so that connects him even more because he recognizes that race, or that type of alien.
But it also makes it weird because obviously the costume is based on the marketing from the fictional movie. But so how is that manifested? I guess that's ethereal, universal question.
Yeah, that's why this is all in the maybe fan theory section. The Pixar thing is too big for me to go into. There's people with fan theories that every Pixar movie is connected and that it's like there's movies before WALL-E where the world still existed and then an event happens and the world is destroyed and you get WALL-E, and then long after the days of WALL-E you get Cars where cars now rule the planet. I don't know all the details of how people connect each film and make certain ones make sense within the logic. It's not important to me. I don't really see it that way, but there are people with fan theories out there that every Pixar movie has connections beyond just Easter eggs showing up in each of them.
Sure. Well, and also going back to what we were talking about with the Tarantino verse is the shared fictional product placement.
Yeah, so that's a big part of it.
You get Planet Pizza in pretty much all of them, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it. Okay, so we talked about the MCU and how it connects to every comic book movie to some degree. Eventually, if they do connect, if they're still keeping the MCU going in some type of continuity, and then they connect to the DC universe at some point, it'll be connected to every comic book movie ever made, probably.
Yes.
It'll just keep growing. Hey, Ben.
Hey.
Hey guys.
You're here. We're just getting started, Ben.
I know. I was listening on my way home. Awesome stuff. Keep going, John. I'm here. I'm ready.
Okay, well,
I'm ready. Just mix the cocktail.
We're getting close to talking about the whole reason I wanted this show to happen. So I'm glad you're here for that.
Okay.
But the next one we were going to talk about, so there was this giant list that I'm like, I'm not going to include it all here because I don't know how they're connecting these films. But so I'll explain to you how, and you guys might already know, how Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, Evil Dead for sure have a slight connection. But then the list that I saw was including like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Shocker, Hellraiser, Final Destination. I mean, it was going on with all these different series that I was like, I don't know how you're connecting these, so I'm not going to try to explain it to anybody. But I do know how the first selection there are connected. So in Friday the 13th, Jason Goes to Hell.
Yes.
You obviously get I think in that film, the Necronomicon is in that film.
Oh, right.
And there is a fan theory that makes Jason a Deadite. So that's like a pretty large connection. If you go with that fan theory that he is a Deadite, then clearly
I've heard they all did that because they all just really loved each other's movies. So they wanted to kind of pay homage. But sorry, John, keep going.
Which is a lot of this, especially like in this selection where we're doing maybe connected. A lot of it is just filmmakers paying respects to each other that connects their films to each other. It's not like they work together to make.
Oh no, but it still works. It still works.
But it still works. So in Jason Goes to Hell, you get Freddy's glove coming out that connects the Nightmare films. You get the Necronomicon, which connects the Evil Dead films. And then in Bride of Chucky, there is an evidence locker that is filled with a hockey mask, Freddy's glove, the Necronomicon, and I think maybe that's where the chainsaw shows up that people are connecting to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But early on in the film, Chucky steals something or goes into an evidence locker or something, and it's filled with all these other memorabilia from these other horror characters.
No Hellraiser cube.
Maybe that's there, and that's why they said Hellraiser is connected. Because I couldn't remember. I didn't have time to go watch that scene and confirm what items are there. But I do know that's why they're saying that Chucky is connected to all this too. But that makes for a pretty amazing cinematic universe if you take all the Friday the 13th, all the Nightmare, all the Chucky, all the Evil Dead, and maybe some of these other ones and slap them all together. That's a pretty impressive horror cinematic universe. Yes, it's kind of made up, but it's still a fun thing to see the connection there.
Oh, sure. It reminds me also of like, because this is one that's sort of a maybe, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, is the idea that the Alien universe takes place in the same universe as the Blade Runner.
Save it. Let's go.
Okay,
Let's just skip Castle Rock then. Let's talk about it right now. We are talking about the Valverde verse. This is why the show exists today, so I can talk about the Valverde verse, which is my favorite cinematic universe. Did you know about it being called the Valverde verse?
I thought that was a salsa.
It's got everything. This universe has it all. It's certainly a salsa of greatness.
Okay.
Do either of you know specifically what I'm talking about when I reference the Valverde verse?
No idea.
I do not.
Valverde.
Unless it's Die Hard and Ricochet.
Well, that's part of it. So,
okay, sorry.
Steven D'Souza, if I'm getting this right, Steven D'Souza wrote Commando. He placed the setting for that in a fictional country called Valverde.
Okay.
That's where he was supposed to go to assassinate the leader or whatever. So it exists as a fictional place in that movie. Then a couple years later, I don't think it's D'Souza tied to it, but somehow, or maybe I'm getting this wrong, maybe it is D'Souza, but Predator takes place in Valverde. That's the country they're in.
Okay.
So both Commando and Predator are connected by this fictional place. Then you get Die Hard 2. Die Hard 2, the Esperanza or
General
whatever.
Esperanza.
General Esperanza, who's
General
flying in, is coming from Valverde.
Okay.
Oh my
So
god!
again, this fictional place shows up in Commando, Predator, and Die Hard 2. So now
You're
you
blowing
can
my
connect
mind, dude.
every Predator movie, and you can connect every Die Hard movie to the Valverde verse.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Also,
that'd be
continuing on. So now you have Commando, Predator, and Die Hard series all connected. Die Hard 2 or Die Hard 1 has a truck that says Pacific. Man, I should have wrote this down properly. Pacific. It's like a moving company or something. Pacific Courier. Pacific Courier shows up in Die Hard 1 on a truck. In Die Hard 3, it's called Atlantic Courier. And in Speed, you see Pacific Courier listed again.
Oh, wow.
Which is also, I think, D'Souza. D'Souza is the one who came up with Pacific Courier in Die Hard 1 and used it again in Speed. And then it shows up again in Die Hard 3. So now you have Speed connected into this, which you could take 2 movies in the Speed universe if you want. You got 5 movies in the Die Hard universe. You got 5 or 6 Predator movies.
4, John. 4. Only 4.
Are you not counting the Predator or something?
No. In the Die Hard universe.
Oh, you're not counting.
5 does not exist.
Good Day to Die Hard.
Sorry.
And then Commando. But it doesn't stop there.
Oh.
So that's the end of Valverde and the Pacific Courier connections.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the Die Hard series, that connects to Ricochet, as I've told both of you before, because of the same reporter who shows up as the same character in both those films. So Ricochet lives in the Die Hard universe.
You're the only one who knows it.
No, this is all on the internet.
I know, but I never knew that, and that's crazy.
But then also connected. So if you have all the Predator films, what else connects to the Predator films?
The Aliens.
All of the Aliens films.
And
what
Blade Runner.
And what connects to all the Alien films? Blade Runner.
And Soldier, apparently.
And Soldier, yes, and Soldier. And then one other one that I just found out recently.
40-year-old version. The 40-year-old version does too. But
it does?
Sure.
Oh. No, but the one other one that I just found out like 2 days ago that I added to the list, apparently there is a Weyland-Yutani logo that shows up in Serenity on some, like, he's shooting with cannons on the ship, and like the interface screen has a Weyland-Yutani logo.
Yeah.
So now you got Serenity.
On what? On what, John?
Serenity. The Firefly movie.
Oh, shit. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So Serenity, Ricochet, 3 Blade Runner films, 2 Speed films, 5 Die Hard films, 2 AVP films, 5 Predator films, or whatever the number is on that, and however many Alien films we have, plus Commando. That is the best cinematic universe. I'm just bummed that somehow Terminator does not get connected to this. If you could just get Terminator.
It's definitely the most obscure universe for sure. 100%.
People know about it.
No. I didn't say they didn't, but like the way you connected them, like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, that was kind of perfect. That was perfect.
But clearly any series that has Die Hard, Predator, and Aliens movies in it, that's going to be my favorite cinematic universe.
Well, I'm glad, because also that just also reflects into Blade Runner as well, which I dig. Now, are you an Alien aficionado? Do you consider Outland, the Sean Connery, Peter Hyams directed sci-fi movie from, I think it was like 81 or 82?
I know it. How does it connect?
Well, just in terms of the aesthetics, and apparently a lot of the same production designers and people who worked on Alien shifted over, and there were a lot of reused elements from the Nostromo in the mining colony off of Saturn, or no, maybe it was.
It's been a long time since
Jupiter.
I've seen it, and I know visually, yeah, I can picture visually. There is that similarity, but
I don't know if there's any
another connection beyond just production design. I probably wouldn't put it in on the list. But since we're doing fun fan editions, like I love to see my favorite universe grow, and I know that movie's pretty good. I own it. So it's a remake of High Noon set in space. So I would totally love to add it to the Valverde verse.
No, I like it. I'm gonna have to get another separate floating shelf just for the Valverde verse.
There you go. I'll send you the full list so you know what to
I would appreciate it.
That's all right. Well, that was
amazing.
That was definitely part of the reason I wanted to do this show. I also was thinking, just timing wise, to be able to talk about the failed universe of the non-Sony cinematic universe was good too. But to be honest, Ben, this whole idea was because I was reading about the Valverde verse a couple months back and was like, we got to talk about this on a show.
Outstanding, man. Good work. And I appreciate it.
Works for me.
I'm imagining that you have a map on the wall with like red yarn connecting.
Yeah, it really needs that.
Yeah.
Cloverfield stuff, I don't even care. Let's not even talk about it. We can talk about Castle Rock if you guys want, but I think the next fun one to really talk about and get Scotty's take on it is which you've probably heard the fan theory out there of James Bond and The Rock.
Yes.
Being connected.
I have heard about this.
That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Ben, do you know how they're supposedly connected?
I do, but I'll let Scotty go. Yeah.
Well, it's because James Bond. This also does sort of work.
Edgar Hoover.
It works in the same sort of way that not only does it make it so that James Bond, The Rock is what happened to James Bond after he was caught during a mission. The British government, MI6, disavowed that they knew anything about him, and he reverts to his real name, which is John Mason. So it does give credence to the idea that James Bond is a code name, and 007 is just an inherited title through. That's why there are multiple actors, and this is James Bond is actually John Mason in The Rock. And I'm okay with that in terms of adding one more movie to the James Bond.
The way he
story.
acts about wanting a tailor and wanting like a a haircut, all that stuff kind of like adds to that flavor of like, maybe this is supposed to be James Bond, like, because then you see him in that suit and he's just like, you're like, oh shit. Like, that's him. I'm Stanley Goodspeed. Well, of course you are. Anyway.
No, but I love that. I like that idea, but the only reason, and I don't know why I buck against it, because it really doesn't make that much of a difference. I don't like the idea of James Bond being a code name. And that's the only reason I bristle against The Rock being in the James Bond. But
or do you like James Bond saying something like,
losers whine about the best.
Losers complain about the best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen. Would James Bond say that? I don't know.
After 30 years in prison, I'm sure the vulgarity would start to go through. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Scotty. I don't really like to think of James Bond as a code name. It doesn't work as well for me. I have fun with The Rock, but like I also have issues with it. It's Michael Bay's excess at times, and so I don't know. I'm on the fence. Like I would never really just out and out say, yes, it has to be part of the James Bond. There's clearly 25 James Bond movies or whatever the number is, because it needs to be included. I wouldn't put it on my shelf next to the James Bond movies in that respect, but I have a lot of fun with it being a fan theory. And I do think that when you look at the timeline of when Sean Connery's films ended and things that happened in his later films that they kind of set up what isn't there like an idea that the break that he has during I thought there was some explanation for why he's not in on Your Majesty's Secret Service that's somewhat explained in The Rock. That's part of why. Is that like when he gets captured? Because I know he comes back for one more film beyond that, but I thought there was an explanation in this fan theory on that helps explain why he has that one film lapse.
And I haven't seen anything with it there, but this is also, I recently watched a YouTube video where someone was trying to explain the continuity. And whenever people start trying to explain the continuity to James Bond, it's like it gets really cross-eyed. But it was that, and it takes place so much farther after. Like Diamonds Are Forever is something like one of Bond's final missions or something, and he finally is going out for revenge against Blofeld. But that's also just to try and make sense of the McClory rights issues that they had with Spectre and Blofeld, and that's why you didn't have Spectre after Diamonds Are Forever. And you only get a brief reference of Blofeld in For Your Eyes Only, and it's basically a throwaway gag to flip the middle finger at Kevin McClory. And then that also incorporates Never Say Never Again. And anyway, it gets like with the continuity of the James Bond movies is confusing to begin with, and it's kind of like. Remember when we were having the Terminator conversation and it's like, which one do you like better, Terminator 1 or Terminator 2? And I was like, it depends on what day of the week it is. And then you called me out on it later and you were like, didn't you say it was something different last time? And I was like, yes. And I said I would change my mind. It's the same thing that happens with The Rock. If you were to ask me like today, I'm like, no, the continuity to James Bond isn't that important, but they're all the same guy. And then in a week, you're going to ask me, is Rock part of the James Bond? Yes. James Bond is a code name, and John Mason is disavowed James Bond. Roger Moore took over.
Yeah, I see it both ways. I'm happy to think of it as a fun fan inclusion, but my love for the James Bond series and its history keeps me from wanting to truly just include it wholeheartedly. Yeah. It's a fun way to look at it from a fan perspective, but the James Bond movies have their specific movies. Now, I'm not a purist that can't watch Never Say Never Again and not want to include it. I get that it's considered that non-Eon production and it has its issues. But I'm not one of those people who what are they on? 24? What was No Time to Die? 24 or 25 without?
I think it's 25.
So there's 26 if you count. Like I don't have a problem when people say how many films are there. I typically would include Never Say Never Again. I don't know if I really would include Casino Royale. I guess part of that's because I've never seen it, so it just doesn't register for me.
The 60s one?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I wouldn't. I don't. But that's also like putting that Casino Royale into the James Bond continuity is kind of like when people call Galaxy Quest the best Star Trek movie that isn't a Star Trek movie. And it's like, yeah, it's a parody, but so I don't really count. But then with Quest, I'm like, yeah, no, Galaxy Quest is kind of a Star Trek movie at the front. So anyway, I excuse me for just one moment, please.
Cool. Well, Ben, are you there, Ben? Or am I by myself now? Just hanging out, talking to myself.
Apparently. No, I'm here, dude. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Well, here, while we're waiting for him to come back to talk about the last one or two on the list, let me bring up the original list for you to kind of weigh in on some of your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I was looking. Yeah.
Any thoughts you have about how successful and why they were successful, why some of these are dwindling or failing? I don't know if you heard the news today that before Craven even comes out,
they're already
that the universe is dead. It's like what kind of marketing is that?
Sony just told their own movie to fuck off. Basically. Yeah, no, I View Askew. I love Kevin Smith's universe very much. Tarantino is probably my favorite because it's very subtle. It's just like name drops. There's no real connection other than name drops. And that's what
But
I
it
like
works
about it.
better than some of the ones that try too hard. Like it feels
Yeah.
more connected. A
Yeah,
lot of that
like I
comes from having one person's vision and their tone across multiple films that match. So there's a benefit of that, of not having to let other people into the universe. But I think, yeah, he's done a better job than most of keeping it going and keeping a consistency.
well, Tarantino, without even really having to try very hard, makes them all, because they all feel like the same world. Even the period pieces, you could, if you started from the beginning of whatever the earliest one was, I think Django is probably the furthest he went back in time. If you watched them from Django to like Hateful Eight to Inglorious Bastards, and then you just kept moving on with the timeline, it feels right. And again, even back in the cowboy era, he's got red apple cigarettes. Like there's little things in there, and just the way people act, the way the world looks through Tarantino's lens. It all
I think that would
feels
actually
like
be kind of a fun way to watch his films, to watch them chronologically. That might be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah. Start from the beginning of the time. Yeah. I
What
think that
would be the latest one in terms of time? I guess, would it be Kill Bill, or would you have to maybe go with Death Proof as the last?
Well, Death
time?
Proof, I don't think ever says when it is. It looks like it's supposed to be the 70s, right?
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Well,
I think
maybe some of the
Kill
music
Bill.
and some of the like. Yeah, you're right. Do they have cell phones?
I think Kill Bill would have to be. Kill Bill to me would be the furthest he's gotten in time, but
in time.
I could be wrong with Death Proof. But
well, we were
I
talking
barely.
about. We'd love for him to jump into the Star Trek universe and make one, which would clearly set the timeline for his last film being way in the future. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that he canceled one movie, which I'm fine with, but hasn't announced another. So I'm wondering if he's just spending all his time getting high with Roger Avery on their podcast and not even worrying about another 10th movie right now. But who knows? Who knows?
He might be a little nervous, like, oh, I said I'm going to make my final film. Now it's got to be the best.
Well, we all know how he works. He works very slow. When he announces the movie, you're waiting 4 years for that fucking movie. Or 3 at least,
Let him take his time and cook the way he wants to cook.
Sure, but I was looking forward to The Movie Critic. I mean,
I was too.
As his last movie, I was like, but we didn't know what kind of a spin he was going to put on it either, So,
well, I thought I had heard he was going to make some. There was going to be moments where the critic was critiquing a film, and so he would make the footage that the critic is watching. So we'd have like these little movies within movies that could be any genre. Like he could make a little scene from a horror movie that doesn't have to fit into the narrative of the movie because it's just something that the critic is watching.
Yeah.
Like I was excited for some of the possibilities that movie could have brought and open the door for him to do a lot of interesting things. If he truly wanted to label this his last movie, he could kind of play around with genres by doing that. But I mean, he's always able to do whatever he wants from a genre standpoint. He's kind of created his own genre. His films can go any direction they want and not feel out of place, I would say.
And my guess is through the technology of AI, he's finally going to make the Vincent and Vic movie where he de-ages John Travolta and Michael Madsen. I hope that's not true, but
his passion for wanting to sort of transition into writing books. That's like I read the ones and plays like the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood novelization is not a novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I love the way he writes that. And then also his nonfiction, his cinema speculation is like, it's a textbook if you want to get into 70s cinema. It's amazing. So I'm kind of hoping that the Movie Critic turns into a book, but from what little we did hear about it, I was kind of afraid because they were talking about bringing back, regular players that Tarantino had worked with, and I was like, this is starting to sound like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It's like we're just going to bring everybody back and please everybody.
Sometimes I think about Tarantino and I'm like, okay, he's done cowboy movies. He's done war movies. He's done crime movies. He's done kung fu movies. He's done exploitation movies. What if he decided to just make a drama? Would that be boring to you, or would it be like?
I think Jackie Brown kind of fits in that. I mean, it's a crime movie too, but
that's in LA. It's a crime movie. It's a crime movie. Yeah. But I know what you mean. That's probably but
I'd like to see science fiction or horror. I know they're just like fanciful genres and whatever, but I would like to see his take on either science fiction or horror.
I would too. I think I would too. I want his last movie to be a horror movie. I've said that forever, John. Like that's what I want, but we'll see. Maybe that's why he canceled The Movie Critic. He's like, you know what? I want to do a fucking horror movie. I want to do a Quentin Tarantino horror movie. Oh my god, I would jizz all over the place. That was
for sure.
Case,
well, there's just a couple left on this list we didn't touch on. I don't know if we need to spend much time. There's Castle Rock movies, which Scotty and
you guys
kind of just mentioned earlier. What was the Sherman, Illinois verse?
Yes.
Similar to that, it's just a made up town that more than one filmmaker has had a chance to implement and put into their movies, and in a made up kind of way, you could say, that would connect all those films. Anything that takes place in Castle Rock or references Castle Rock. Most of those are Stephen King movies, but there are ones that have referenced Castle Rock that are not Stephen King stories.
The only thing that I can think of when I hear the name Castle Rock is just the studio logo at the end of every episode of Seinfeld.
I was gonna say the same thing, man.
So Seinfeld is part of the Stephen King universe.
Awesome. Well, that might be my favorite universe then. I don't know.
Yeah, the Castle Rock Studios or production or whatever it is. Yeah.
So the last one on the list that I do think is a fun fan theory, although Jordan Peele has kind of weighed in and tried to say this might be factual, that Being John Malkovich adaptation and Get Out could be connected through Catherine Keener's character. That Being John Malkovich, she learns the technique to get inside of people, and in Get Out, that's what she's still able to do. Adaptation would only be connected because adaptation sees John Malkovich as a real film that took place in the universe that adaptation takes place in.
I don't buy it.
So those two are connected, and then Get Out gets connected. But this is one out of all of these that are fan theories where Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele didn't write his story with that in mind, but fans said it to him, and he said, "You know what? I like it. Let's go with it."
See, that's where you could also put in the 40-year-old version because she was in that as well. So
there you go.
We have another 40-year-old version connection.
But yeah, supposedly her mind control tricks or body control tricks from Being John Malkovich are part of what she's doing in Get Out.
I like that. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
I would like to see her body control tricks personally.
Yeah.
Very personally.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fun. They're all fun. It's fun to mix all that shit together for sure. For sure. You know, I mean, that one sounds like bullshit to me, but it's also very fun to think about, you know.
I would say bullshit too until I heard that Jordan Peele liked the idea. Then it's like, okay, I can, from a fan perspective, I can run with it since he's cool with it.
Did you guys, I'm way late to the party. Did you guys have any input or even bring up the Shyamalan universe?
Oh, no.
No, I mean, technically the three films in the Unbreakable, Glass, and Split, but I kind of see that less as a cinematic universe as more as just
sequels. Well, there's a lot of people say that Sixth Sense is part of that because of location, and yes, Bruce Willis is a doppelganger, but that, and then God, what's the other one?
Well, they all take place in Pennsylvania,
Philly for the most.
mostly in Philly, but I think almost every movie except for maybe like the one on an island takes place in Pennsylvania, I think.
I think
almost
Trap
all of them.
the movie Trap belongs in a universe called the Shitiverse
Yes.
because that movie fucking sucks.
Still works. It can stand side by side with The Happening.
The Shitiverse. Yeah. The Happening and
The
Trap.
Shatning.
Anyway, yeah, I wasn't sure if you guys brought that up. Yeah, you're right, John. It's only a couple of movies, but it's technically, there, but not enough.
I think it could certainly fall under this whole fan theory. Maybe, the maybe cinematic universes. It's really how anybody wants to see it. It's up for debate. The rest of the list, which I don't have a screenshot to share, were all spin-offs. I don't know that you would really consider these cinematic universes because I don't know. I'll just read the list real quick.
I noticed that you had Harry Potter under a spin-off.
Because technically the 3 films they made were like spin-offs. But yeah, I don't know. Then does that mean then that the Lord of the Rings movies are also a cinematic universe?
No, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was just curious on your thought because you do have Dumbledore in those, spin-off movies, but that doesn't necessarily make it a universe, I guess. You're right.
Well, and that is why I included this list of spin-off movies because, yeah, it's easy just to call them cinematic universes, but they are also very clearly taking a main character and giving them their chance to shine. Like a small character in a previous film gets a chance to shine in a new film. I don't know. I'm happy to include them, but we'll real quick reading the list, letting everyone chime in. Rocky, Harry Potter, Ocean's 11, the Shrek movies because of the Puss in Boots movies are spinoffs. Mm-hmm. Despicable Me has the Minion movies as spinoffs. Cars has the Plane movies as spinoffs. Toy Story has Buzz Lightyear as a spinoff. The Mummy movies have the Scorpion King movies. Fast and Furious. I don't know that I would really count that because they made one movie called Hobbs and Shaw that it's even a spinoff, but that kind of counts. And then Jumanji, everyone forgets that Zathura is actually part of that series. So you technically have something like 3 or 4 Jumanji movies at this point, but you also have Zathura. So
I love Zathura. I think it's a blast.
Yeah,
it's a fun movie. It's a very
early
fun
Jon Favreau. Yes,
yeah, I like it a lot. It's very fun.
So if you guys think that any of those should really be considered, cinematic universe, happy to go with that. But I kind of saw them more as long-running series that also found a way to spin off a character and give them their own set of movies.
I would say because you said Zathura, that Jumanji should be more of a cinematic universe than say Cloverfield, because Cloverfield is just like 3 movies that they stapled on this bullshit at the end of each one of the other 2 to link them to the first. To me, that's lazy and that's hardly a universe. I think Zathura mixed with Jumanji and then going back to The Rock and Jack Black and all that stuff, that seems more like a universe to me. But that's just me, because that's also like a video game too. But there's no reason to not. I don't know. To me, it sounds more like a universe than.
I agree. With
Cloverfield is just like the first movie was a spectacle and it was entertaining as a found footage movie. The second movie was a thought-provoking, wonderful, down in a bunker movie. The third movie was a piece of shit that wasn't supposed to be a Cloverfield movie. Yeah. So and actually, I think Cloverfield Lane wasn't supposed to be a Cloverfield movie either. But yeah. So to me, that's a fake cinematic universe. They want you to think it is, but it's not.
Well, okay. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about failed cinematic universes, because that's the one topic we haven't brought up.
Ooh, I'm excited. There's a lot of.
Because Cloverfield would be an example of that. After that second film, I'd say they had all. Remember, there was talk that that World War II movie with zombies was also like a secret Cloverfield movie.
Overlord. It was
Overlord.
it was intended to be, and then they're like, well, this has nothing to do with Cloverfields.
So yeah, I think, not truly planning this stuff out is the death knell. Like the only ones that have been successful had at least some amount of planning going into this. All these ones that think we'll have a hit movie. Go ahead.
You and I both liked Overlord, right? Our review, we kind of liked
it. I did.
Yeah, we liked it. Yeah.
But it was also a movie that we were like, the first few minutes are the best, most intense.
Oh my God, yeah.
And
yeah, the airdrop
reached that level again, which was kind of a letdown. But
that's true. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, failed cinematic universes. The topic of today is the non-Sony or the Sony non-Spider-Man universe. As of today, it is a truly failed universe.
Yes.
It was a joke.
I have not seen Venom #3, but I don't know if I really like any of the movies in that entire series.
Well, and I've made this complaint before, and this is why I don't like any of those movies is because I don't want to watch a Spider-Man villain movie without Spider-Man. It's part of the reason why I was resistant to Joker, the first one. And that's an old joke that I've been saying repeatedly is when people were talking about Joker 2. And they're like, it's not even Joker. And I was like, he wasn't the Joker in the first one either. I don't know what you're upset about. And so so that's it's one of those things where if you're going to have Venom, part of the reason Venom is a compelling character is because he is the evil version of Spider-Man. If there is no version of Spider-Man in this movie, then there is no evil version of Spider-Man. So
Same with you can't have Craven. You can't have Craven.
Well, like, you can have Craven.
No. You can have Morbius without Spider-Man. I actually have Morbius comic books where Spider-Man's not in them.
Right.
But Craven, his goal, his number one prize is Spider-Man. So that's but this looks like it's supposed to be like an origin story or something like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, but
fucking ripped Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah.
And when I watched that, when I watched that trailer, I'm just sitting there going like, oh, okay. So the culmination of this character is that he is going to end up failing to capture or kill Spider-Man, and then he's going to eat a shotgun. Like, that is what happens to Craven in the comics. He literally commits suicide. And that's not going to happen. Why are you... What idiot thought it was a good idea? And it's like, oh, yeah, no, he's a murderer who wants to kill good guys, and we're going to make him a sympathetic character with daddy issues. And it's like, what the fuck? And then also you've got the Rhino in there for some reason. They've got other characters. Oh,
God, yeah.
And so it's just like, what do you now? It's like when they were trying to set up this idea that they're going to make a Sinister Six movie. And it's like, we're going to make a Sinister Six movie. Is Spider-Man going to be in it? No. Then why is there a Sinister Six?
Yeah. Are they like are they the Suicide Squad? They're like good guys. Like
it's just the impetus for their being isn't there. And that's why I've never seen any of the Venom movies. I have no interest in seeing the Venom movies. I'm not going to see Morbius. I'm not going to see Craven. I'm not going to see Madam Web, because all of those characters that I just listed in their respective movies are missing one very important character. And that
John,
is Spider-Man.
John, do you want to come back to size, or do you just want to be that list?
Well, I think the list was helpful. I mean, originally we were kind of going over the list. So
no. I just realized you're not on screen. The list is, but I can leave it there if you want it. It's fine.
Well, we did go through it, so there's no reason to keep it up at this point.
All right. wait, no.
The list won't go away unless I do that.
Put up like
there we go.
There we go.
He's back.
But
I didn't go anywhere.
No, Sam Raimi's original conception for Spider-Man 4, before the studio told him to kill Harry Osborn, was that Harry Osborn was going to hire Kraven the Hunter to hunt down Spider-Man. And that would have been awesome. Like before, Harry turned into the goblin on a snowboard, which we got in the movie. I don't hate Spider-Man 3, but I just thought, man, that would have been so cool if Spider-Man 4 was Harry still after Spider-Man. Kraven the Hunter, which I think people were talking about at the time anyway. Can't do it now. He's way too old. But like John Malkovich, I was like, yes. Yes.
I wanted Malkovich for Vulture.
Vulture.
Oh,
That's
my
who-
bad. My bad.
Yeah.
No, but who were they talking about for Kraven? Somebody. I don't know. Okay, you're right. Vulture. My bad. Which would have been great.
Yeah.
But Michael Douglas or whoever the fuck,
Michael
Batman, whoever did it good. Did it good too.
He
yeah.
did a good job.
But yeah, he did all right. But no, that was the original idea for the Spider-Man 4 was like Harry Osborn was going to hire Kraven, and Kraven was going to be hunting Spider-Man, which has never happened to Spider-Man before. He's constantly on the run from someone that doesn't have his powers, but is a step ahead of him. And I'm like, oh, that would have been so cool. That would have been so cool.
Don't worry, they'll get to it. They're going to keep rebooting every single one of these comic book properties.
Well, they keep talking about doing another Toby one. He's like 50 years old now. They better hurry.
I'm pretty sure that they're going to make the part 4 with Tom Holland and bring back both Toby and Andrew Garfield in that.
They really should. They should give him his own. They need to make the 4th one street level. We got his costume, which is street level. I want to see a street level Spider-Man, but yeah, you're probably right because the money is there. It's why do you want to take the money or do you not want to take the money? Yeah,
and that's the disappointing part is that they're just going to try and rehash or emulate the success, and they'll want to bring back Toby and Andrew, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think that'll be sort of like we've seen that, and I don't necessarily.
While they're at it, they should bring back Ben Affleck's Daredevil, because Daredevil and Spider-Man had a hell of a run in the comics together. By the way, I don't know if you guys have read any of those, but great comics of Spider-Man and Daredevil. But that'd be fun. Like Ben Affleck, well, he's old now too, but you know, CGI,
just CGI de-aging, yeah.
You can't have Michael Clark Duncan anymore as Kingpin, so you'll have to use Vincent D'Onofrio. But
it's all over the place.
Yeah,
and that's why those cinematic universe, like with that cinematic universe specifically, whenever it comes into parallel universes and alternate realities, I just sort of,
Didn't No Way Home have the Matt Murdock character, the one from the TV shows? Am I wrong about that?
It did.
So they did already kind of set up that there could be a crossover with that actor playing.
Yeah, you're actually right. I'd rather see Charlie Cox with Spider-Man than Ben Affleck. Yeah. Charlie Cox is awesome.
Hey, Tiger Stripes is here. Hey, Tiger.
Hey.
Affleck. I think you just go with the new Daredevil. Yeah, I like the Cox fella.
Hey, Tiger Stripes.
You like what, Scotty?
Charlie Cox. COS.
So what else?
But obviously, the biggest thing with the failed cinematic universe would be Alex Kurtzman's Mummy with Tom Cruise.
Dark Universe.
Oh yeah.
Which is a shame.
I bring that up. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want exactly to see a Marvel version of Dracula and like the template that Marvel movies use to keep their tone the same across all their movies with the humor and whatnot. Like I didn't necessarily want to see them do that version of these characters, but I was pretty excited with the lineup that they had, some of the actors they were talking about that were going to fill the various roles.
Yeah, Javier Bardem, Johnny Depp.
I think it could have been a lot of fun, and it would have been like Monster Squad, where you're seeing these things kind of come together and a team fighting against them, and I was there for it.
Me too.
But that first movie, like,
it was terrible.
I don't even know if it's so bad. It's so forgettable. Like,
it's just fucking terrible. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And I hate to say that because, John, if you remember when we went to Dances with Films back in 2017, remember the big billboard above the TLC Chinese Theater was the Mummy poster just hanging. And I was looking forward to it because I like Tom Cruise. And man, that movie was bad.
Well, Tom Cruise wanted to get out of doing Mission Impossible movies and wanted to make this his next big run of sequels and stuff, and just didn't happen.
Tiger Stripe says we all have cock, or we all love cocks.
Love cocks.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Tiger Stripes, you're on fire. I like it. Keep it coming. Oh, hey, Ben. Oh, you guys read something from Ben earlier. This is Ben too. This is Ben from Cinema.
Yep.
Ben,
Yay.
Dracula Untold was the first real one, but it flopped so hard the studio pretended it didn't happen. Yeah, well, they
true.
did that like five times. But yeah, that was the one that was supposed to start this big new thing, and I don't think anybody. I didn't even know it was a movie until like after it left the theater. Like I never.
But
saw it.
if I remember correctly, they like had already made
Ben.
it, or were making it, and then realized, okay, we need to make this big cinematic universe on Universal Monsters, and so they just did some reshoots to kind of make the ending where he was still around or available to be integrated into a modern, because the movie takes place in the past. And so I think if I remember correctly, they just kind of tacked on an ending that allowed him to be in the modern time. So when they're ready to fold him into this bigger universe, he'd be available for that.
Oh,
but I don't think
like
the movie did a whole lot of groundwork to set up the universe as a whole.
Kind of like the way Captain America like did its thing in the 40s, and then it had him on ice, and then he woke up in modern times, and you're like, oh, now he's here with the rest of the Avengers. Okay.
Yeah. I believe that was how
it just wasn't a good movie. It just was a shitty movie, apparently.
Yeah.
I like Luke Evans. I like Luke Evans a lot.
Well, and it might have been PG-13. Like, if you're going to make a Dracula movie or any version of horror, don't make it PG-13. Even if you're trying to make it action-oriented, a la Blade. Still, the good Blade movies are good because they're R-rated. The
first two are.
That's also a problem with that whole universe. It was going to be a neutered Marvelized version of horror movies, and I wasn't on board with that aspect of it. But if somebody was able to come and take it serious and bring some real horror to these movies, while also having them have the action element and the combining forces of all these great villains, with obviously have to introduce some good heroes to combat them or whatever, or certain monsters would turn out to be good and be anti-heroes. I don't know the direction it all would have went, but I was interested. Just they couldn't.
I think the problem is you can't start a cinematic universe. As much as I love Tom Cruise, you can't start a universe with him because he's always going to be front and center.
Yeah,
and his character was a creation. It wasn't from anything that we've seen in the Universal monster world. So having I thought it was a good idea to have like Russell Crowe as like Jekyll and Hyde, but honestly, if they'd used him as like a Nick Fury in that first movie, which they never should have done anyway. But if there was going to be a Nick Fury, it should have been Van Helsing, because Van Helsing doesn't have powers. It's just a person, but you don't do that. You don't do that stuff in the first movie. You just make a mummy movie. And then the second movie, you make a Dracula movie or a fucking, I don't know, whatever
Invisible
the fuck.
Man, yeah.
Yeah, Invisible Man. And then Van Helsing shows up and is like, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. I like all you guys. You could help me defeat all these monsters. Whatever. I don't know. There's something you could have done. I think that movie pushed everything so far. Like, it makes DC look genius on how fast they tried to push their universe, because they tried to push everything at once in The Mummy, and that's just, it's a recipe for disaster, so.
Yeah, well, and that I agree with you, and I think that as you mentioned very early on in the conversation, John, how PG-13 was supposed to be seen as this money-making opportunity to be able to get what would normally be an R-rated movie and expand it out a little bit so you can get a younger audience that would be interested in it, and it would be a little edgier, and so we're going to get a wider audience to make more money. And now with the cinematic universe, as we've seen with DC emulating MCU And with the Dark Universe saying, all right, we haven't released this movie yet, but we have a Photoshop of all of these actors who will be in our very, very profitable franchise.
And that was infamously Photoshopped, by the way.
And
all
it's
those
like
people together, sitting on chairs.
And as you said, Ben, it's like, just make one movie. Don't announce the 7 or 8 movies that you're intending to intertwine together to make this fantastic franchise. Make one movie, and then let the audience decide if they actually want to see it. Like, audiences will vote with their wallets, and sometimes they will vote with their wallets because of the promise of the future endeavors. But I went to go see Star Wars Episode 1 in 3D because I figured one day in like 10 years, I'll be able to see A New Hope in 3D doing the trench run. And I was like, that's why I'm buying this ticket for The Phantom Menace. And I'll watch Attack of the Clones and I'll see Revenge of the Sith so I can see Star Wars in 3D. Well, shit. Never happened.
It still may happen.
Did Force Awakens come out in 3D? Probably, right?
I don't.
so.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Maybe a
Did it-
conversion.
Did
or
it
some
really?
shit.
I didn't know that.
I don't know. I can't remember. I didn't see it in 3D.
Could we watch the boring Last Jedi in 3D, where it's just like people on an island, but it's like, wow, ooh, 3D. I can feel Luke's face and beard. You know.
So do you guys feel like because of the failure of something like the Dark Universe, it cannot be tried again?
No, it
should
can,
not be
and
tried again?
No, it is being tried again, John. Like, so I know you hated this movie. I loved it, but
I didn't hate it, but I wasn't a
The
fan.
Invisible Man from Lee
I didn't hate it. Not a fan.
Okay. Oh, I thought you did, but next
And
month,
I know he's got Wolfman coming out
in January. So if that is successful, the way that Invisible Man was, then you have this really small monster verse of Universal, because they're very different than the source material. They're very different. They're not really remakes. They're completely reimaginings, you know. From what I've seen on the trailer of the Wolfman, it's nothing like the actual story. You know, it's like a guy who is trying to kill his family because he turns into a Wolfman or whatever. But if they do that and it becomes successful, then maybe they do some sort of small scale Mummy, or maybe they do a small scale. I would love to see Creature from the Black Lagoon done right. I mean, the original movie's done perfectly, but I'd love to see it done right, like reimagined. But
Shape of Water is kind of an update of that.
Sort of, yeah.
And it drops little hints that it could be connected to the 1950s film. Scotty, when you were talking about, like, if I really tried to think about what films outside of the first 20 years or so that are considered the Universal monster movies, we were talking about like Renfield and whatnot and Monster Squad. That would probably be another one that maybe you could say is connected to that universe.
Huh?
Do you know?
I've still never seen it.
The 3 movies that I feel are really, really, really connected because of tone, because of direction. They're all R-rated. And they're a little bit distant in time from one another, but Bram Stoker's Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola, Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein, very dark, feels like it's in the same universe. It's just like, you know, tragic and dark. And then jump ahead like 16 years or something like that. The Wolfman, the Joe Johnston Wolfman, which I really like, and it bombed and people thought it sucked. I think it's great. But those 3 movies are like R-rated.
Well, put in
really faithful.
Put in the Hollow Man. Hollow Man in there too.
Well,
technically.
Well, no, because I just mean those are all period pieces.
Oh yeah. You're right. Sorry.
Because they all stick with the period for which they're written.
Yeah.
I think they're all like really savage and dark and like violent and sexual and stuff like that. Like those 3 to me kind of feel like their own little universe.
Interview with the Vampire can't kind of fit into that a little bit.
If they had made more movies, I mean, what'd they make? Village of the Damned, and that was pretty much it, right?
Was it Queen of the Damned?
Queen of the Damned.
Or I'm sorry, Queen of the Damned. It was the only other movie they made. I think they were gonna make a bunch of Anne Rice movies, and then they never made any more after that. That would have been cool. I would have loved to have seen a bunch of Anne Rice Vampire Chronicle books turned into movies, because they're very interesting stories. They're just gothic tales, that would have been great.
Yeah,
but they didn't do it. And then they turned, like, what was it, fucking Lestat into Stuart Townsend or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rockstar. Well, that's in the book, I guess.
That's in the book. But
yeah. But he just wasn't. Tom Cruise was so good.
To the point of saying, hey, is it out of the realm of possibility that somebody would take the same approach, just get it right, and go back and make a dark universe? Because what I liked about the dark universe that you could see they were setting up was that it did have those elements that Marvel has, of this team building, of this building to big cinematic events. That's what they wanted to do. The first movie didn't really do a good job of even laying any groundwork of what we were going to see, but you could see what they wanted to accomplish with it, with the casting and things like that, that it was going to be a version of Marvel, but with all the horror elements. But also action. Like, you clearly could tell they wanted, he was an action hero, Tom Cruise.
They went more with like the action and the humor than they did the horror. Yeah.
I want it to be, me personally, I like things to be taken serious. So give it an R rating, and who cares about the kiddos? I don't need to play to them. But I would love somebody else to get behind that idea of a connected monster universe that takes it serious, that brings the horror side, but also does keep this kind of superhero team building part of it, and the action, some of it having action in it. I think that's cool, because I guess you could say, yes, make updates to the old classic horror films, update them, but adding that extra element of action to the series as well really defines it as something different than just remakes of classic horror movies. It becomes its own thing. So I was very on board with that idea, and I think I would love for somebody else to run with it in the future. Maybe it needs a lot of time before people would approach it, but I don't really know why. When they reboot Spider-Man every 2 years and Batman every 3 years, and everything happens so quickly now, they make a new version. We have multiple Batmans playing at the same time, Spider-Man's animated while also being live action at the same time, all of that kind of stuff. Why do we need to wait a long time for someone to figure out that that's still a profitable idea? They just screwed it up with their approach. Get it right.
Hey,
Take the time. Sit and write
Gorilla Censor Thought says, hey, keep it down. I'm trying to sleep.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Hey, man, welcome. Ben brings up a good point here, though. He brings a good idea into my head that maybe Del Toro would have been a good, like a producer / showrunner to, like, kind of create that universe. But you know how he is. He's always like, he attaches himself to something and then he bails on it. He does that all the time. What do you guys think? Would Del Toro be a good thing?
I think he would be great. Well,
he would be good.
He made probably the best update of one of those classic films with Shape of Water. Like, took it serious. It was violent. It had everything I want. Like, it was on my best picture list for that year. I think it won.
Ben is right. Ben is right. Shape of Water is basically Abe Sapien. Yeah, so it could be tied to Hellboy. Yeah, it kind of looks like Abe.
Oh, that is a cinematic universe. I wasn't even really thinking that there's slight connections to two Hellboys, Shape of Water, and all Creature of the Black Lagoon movies.
Oh, I wish Hellboy would have had a part 3. God, I wish that movie would have been able. I wish that trilogy could have completed. That would have been fantastic. But yeah. Anyway, what else we got there, John?
I got nothing else. Like, if there's other failed cinematic universes you guys want to talk about, we can. I just had one other thing that I'll chime in before I have to go, because it is getting late. I kind of have to get out of here.
I got one thing real quick, and I don't really. There's not going to be much conversation on it, but I don't know if this was failed, but it definitely was the end of the franchise, and that was the Paranormal Activity movies. they definitely created a cinematic universe because they branched off into different areas, but everything connected back to, if you've seen them all, they do connect back to kind of the original. But diminishing returns just kind of killed it from moving forward, where they had the marked ones and then they had the Amish ones and this and this and this. I think they
I don't know if I've seen the Amish one.
Yeah, they have an Amish.
There's an Amish one?
Yeah, there's an Amish one. I think.
Wait, how are the Amish using video cameras to record their ghosts?
Because there's a videographer there to videotape the Amish people. Yeah.
Interesting. I have not seen that one. I did not know it existed.
Yeah, no, it exists, but that was one of those universes where they should have just been like, okay, we are so lucky that we made all this money off just pointing a camera at nothing for 2 hours. Yeah. But we got to keep going and going and going. And
would this be what the Amish version of Paranormal Activity looks like? Oh, no, it didn't. Oh, I thought it would go black. I wanted the screen to just go black.
No, I think the way they escape that is by having somebody out there shooting them for a documentary or something like that. But still, they stretched it so fucking thin. But anyway,
I'm glad it's over. I was never a fan of that stuff, those movies.
I got to go too, John. One. So, John, if you got you're
just the one last thing I was going to say. I don't even really want to know if we need to go into the topic. I was going to say, what are some movies you'd like to see combined to create a new cinematic universe? I didn't even write anything down, but I know one that has been discussed, or I guess two that have been mentioned. I don't know if it'll ever really happen. I think maybe they've already decided to move on. There's talk of Men in Black and the
21 Jump Street.
21 Jump Street.
That was like 10 years ago. Yeah.
I know the time's probably passed, but like I still would maybe be on board just to see what kind of fun we could get out of that. And then the other one, which I don't know,
will not sanction those guys' buffoonery. He just won't.
Who won't?
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones will not sanction their buffoonery. So just saying.
Well, then they'll just hire Chris Hemsworth and whatever Valkyrie to do it.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah. They'll just get Josh Brolin. And then the other one that I know has been mentioned, I don't think it's a real possibility, but studios get hungry for money. Maybe they'll do it someday. Fast and Furious and Jurassic Park are talked about.
I'm game.
They're both owned by Universal.
I'm totally game for that.
Which, like, how am I supposed to wrap my head around 10 Fast and Furious movies that have never mentioned dinosaurs when they've already existed since '93 in that particular universe?
It doesn't matter.
There was ever a Fast and Furious movie. There were dinosaurs that people knew were on this. Brought back.
It doesn't matter. Dom will take a crowbar and hit a raptor over the head, and you will be happy eating your popcorn. And that's all you need to know.
No, he's gonna do a street race in his muscle car next to a raptor riding a motorcycle.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping for. Well, and
go ahead, Scotty.
Well, and I think that they teased this at the end of one of these movies, but I've always wanted to see a Transformers G.I. Joe. But first thing we have to do is a good G.I. Joe.
That's happening.
Yeah. Apparently that's being teased too, but you just have to make a good G.I. Joe movie first.
Yeah, that would actually, I would be intrigued if they did that. But they've never made a good. Well, they've only made 2 G.I. Joe movies, and they're both pretty bad.
No, they made one.
I've never seen any Transformers. What's that?
There's 3 because they made a Snake Eyes film.
Oh, that's right. I never saw that, but I haven't seen Transformers movies either. No. But I would say if I wanted 2 cinematic universes to merge together, ooh, that's a tough one. Maybe The Hangover and Zero Dark 30. That might be interesting.
Just so they can all get murdered.
Just a bunch of hungover Navy SEALs. I don't know. I just don't have. I don't have one. I'm thinking, but Scotty, do you have, or did you already say one? Oh, you did.
All right, good. Let's cross over Rebel Moon and Star Wars,
or Back to the Future and Star Wars. Like they go too far and they go way back to another.
Way back.
There you go.
We've traveled to a different galaxy. It's very far away.
Wait, your name's Leia? You're my mother? You're my great grandmother.
Okay, I'm on board now. All right. Well, I do have to run. It's 9:00. Ben, I'm glad you were able to make it and be a part of the
I'm
show.
glad too. I raced home. You guys, I was listening in the car. You guys were fucking awesome. So
If you had not made it here, this would be one of the most rare pieces of Cinema Gulp media to exist that Ben is not involved. There's almost no media on this channel that Ben's not tied to. Even if it's a random review that I did in the early days, you still edited it. So
I should have not shown up then.
no,
No.
we needed you. We need you here. And I'm glad you showed up just in time to talk about the Valverde verse, because that's really what this whole show was about.
The centerpiece.
Oh, dude, Ben's got a good one. Harry Potter and 50 Shades of Grey.
Shades of Grey. I like it. Oh, yeah.
There is a place where that exists. You have to go through a little curtain at the video store, but they do have that.
Yeah, and also online it's called the dark web or something.
Yeah. It's spelled
Cool, man.
H-A-I-R-Y.
Well, Scotty, I will let you do the honors since you have ran this show beautifully, sir. So I will just stand here and let you finish us off. Finish me off later.
Well, actually, that's perfect timing, Ben. While he finishes you off, we have one clip that needs to get played while you're here because it hasn't been played yet. He's finishing you off. You play the clip.
Which clip?
Ding.
Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong!
All right, that's a good wrap up. I do have to go, guys.
Later, guys.
And
I won't be able to be at the Christmas special next week, or at least I don't think so. Maybe there's a possibility that my plans might change, but if I can't be there, Ben, you and I will get together on something, just a short little video we can do for Christmas.
I'll send you a text because I got something coming up just at the house I want to talk to you about. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right. Good chatting with you, Scotty. That was fun.
Cheers, John. Thank you. Have a good
See
night.
you guys next time.
You guys are awesome.
Wicked cool. And thank you so much to the chat for being here. Everyone who is here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell for all of the new Cinema Gulp content that is up. Ben is doing an amazing job in keeping everyone from going thirsty. And again, thank you to the chat. And we will be back next Wednesday. I don't know what we're up to. I'm sure it'll be fun.
What do you have coming up?
Oh, right. What do I have coming up? Tomorrow on the Phantasmagorium with Kat and Steve, we're going to be talking about Terminator 2. And on Friday, it is going to be my first viewing of The Nightmare Before Christmas with Jill on the Anti-Derivative Jill channel.
Ooh, I'm curious to see what you think about that. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'm allowed to dislike it. So
it's fine. It's visually cool, but it's got a lot of singing, so
Yeah, well, I like music. But yeah, we will see you next time on next Wednesday. We are Cinema Gulp and we drink your cinema.
Good.